I'm David Scandura.
I am Justus Burkett.
And today we're here to find out, is Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me the greatest movie ever made?
It was a dream. We lived inside a dream.
Welcome to the greatest movie ever made, the show where we watch a movie and tell you if it's the greatest movie ever made. A movie that is so thoroughly entertaining and compelling that while you're watching it, it's the only thing that matters in the world. I am David Scandura, here, as always, in the podcasting studio at the Black Lodge, joined by my co-host and the himbo from another place, Justus Burkett.
Yeah, I didn't do a thing during your intro this week. I think I forgot because we had to do a remote record setup before we started talking, and my brain was just like so wrapped up in like remote record. How are we gonna see Val and also talk to Val? And sorry, I'm saying our guest name before we've introduced her. Which I think is a cardinal sin of podcasting. It's fine. We don't know what the fuck we're doing. So I didn't say anything during your intro. I think I was going to throw in a garmonbozia. But I ended up not doing that. Yeah, no, we're here to talk about some Lynch today.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that he's known for, probably, which is Twin Peaks. Although not the biggest thing within Twin Peaks that he's known for. I think the show is maybe a little bit more well-known than the movie, but it's gained some appreciation since its original, like, 92 release, and I know our guest is going to be big on the appreciation train, although I feel like when this movie initially came out, like, some people were more tepid, but I think we're going to be having a fun time with some Fire Walk With Me today. I mean, as fun of a time as you can have with this horrible story. How you doing, David?
I'm doing well. Let's just cut to it and introduce our guest. Joining us, the staff sergeant of the David Lynch dick-sucking parade, Valerie Moffat.
Hey, fellas, how you doing?
Doing good, Val. How are you?
I'm good. Let's talk some David Lynch. You said some people were more tepid about this movie, which I think is probably the most polite way I've ever seen it described, the reception to it.
Yeah, getting booed at Cannes, allegedly. Although some people say that didn't happen. Yeah.
We're going to do our like general check-in and media recommendations in a second here.
Yeah.
I just want to put a line in the sand and just get this out of the way for anyone listening. Don't listen to this if you haven't seen Fire Walk With Me.
Yes.
And don't watch Fire Walk With Me if you haven't seen at least the first two seasons of Twin Peaks.
Yes, that's all correct. I mean, we'll get into kind of like the structure of Twin Peaks and like the some of the lore. We can't get into all of it. This podcast would be 8 hours long. But we'll get into some of it. But like, I personally think that like the viewing order for the Twin Peaks content that really exists out there is season 1, season 2, Fire Walk With Me, Missing Pieces, season 3, right?
Yes, that's correct.
You both agree with that, right? And that's the order it came out in.
I mean, that's not, like, I would go as far as to say it's not even an opinion. It's just, like, there's one right answer, and it's
Right. Yeah. Because, like, if you watch 3 and you haven't seen Fire Walk With Me, like...
It's incomprehensible.
Which some of it's incomprehensible anyway.
Right, yeah.
But that's part of it. Anyway, we'll talk more about it when we talk about it.
I just wanted to, like, let everyone know,
yes,
in case your first episode of the show is this one.
Pick a different first episode.
Yeah, go back and listen to our Trick or Treat episode.
Yeah, go and watch 30 episodes of network television and then come back to me.
And 4 hours of movie, the 2.5 hours of the theatrical cut of Fire Walk With Me, and then the hour and a half of deleted scenes.
And then listen to this podcast, and then go and watch The Return.
That's correct. Yeah, that's we're really the most accessible podcast out there.
No, this is by far the least accessible episode we've had.
This episode's gonna have 8 listens. The 8 of our listeners who have seen Twin Peaks. No. Anyway.
Val, we'll start with you. How are you doing, and what media have you been enjoying recently?
I'm doing pretty well. It's a beautiful day in Los Angeles. It's in the mid 60s. I walked to the office to record this, and it was a beautiful day. I've been listening to, since the weather has started to turn, I have been listening to the first Sisters of Mercy album a lot. I have been watching a concerning amount of Seinfeld. I have been playing Armored Core 6. I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3, and I just re-downloaded the first Dishonored game, one of my favorite games of all time, and I have been going absolutely hog wild with that.
That sounds fun. That sounds like a lot of fun. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a gamer.
I was looking at David to comment on the video games because I haven't played. That's why I kind of looked at you like, video games, am I right?
Right.
Because I have not played a video game in 10 years, probably.
Amazing.
The last time I console gamed was when I was living at my parents' house still. And then I did a tiny bit of PC gaming, or not even PC gaming. I downloaded the 3 games that would work on my MacBook Air.
Nice. Hell yeah.
And played those, which was Portal 2. Yeah.
Portal 2, yeah.
Yeah. And Limbo, the side scroller.
Oh, yeah.
And those were the last games that I played, and that was probably a decade ago.
Amazing.
So
I can't even imagine that. Guys, I paused my game to be here, okay?
Okay. So this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Also,
Don't talk to me till I've had my gaming.
Speaking of big deals, by the way, we do just have to acknowledge that we are here with a bona fide podcast professional.
I do
today.
And work in podcasting. Yes.
Yeah. Val said that she went to the office today. The office is can we say who you work for, or is it a secret?
Yeah.
Okay. Val works for the Maximum Fun Network, which has a bunch of very big, very successful podcasts on it, and Val is one of their producers. So we have a real heavyweight in the world of podcasting with us, which is maybe a little intimidating, especially when our setup was so difficult and took so long. But
no, listen, I have been on the engineering side of plenty of remote recordings, and this was one of the easier ones, I will tell you.
Well, that is highly complimentary. I'll make sure to
anything short of connecting directly to a studio that we're paying for. It's this. This is just what it looks like.
I'll make sure to pass that along to the Podmaster so that she knows that she did a great job.
Podmaster, you're doing great.
David, how are you doing, and what have you been enjoying in media this week?
I'm doing well. I just wanted to say that I really want to play Armored Core and Baldur's Gate, but I'm so behind. I'm so behind on consoles and PC gaming, so I don't have the money to upgrade right now. I will say, I rewatched the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah.
We'll probably never do an episode on those movies.
Well, why not?
Theatrical or extended?
Extended, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Who do you think I am?
I just have to make sure. I should have put it in my rider. I'm sorry.
All I can say is those movies are nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah.
And rewatching them just emphasizes how we are never going to see movies like that ever again.
Yeah. That's true.
And I also watched the original Godzilla for the first time. I watched it after I watched Fire Walk with Me. It was kind of a nuclear breath walk with me. And
you want to
everyone
get
talks
into,
about the
you wanted
nuclear...
to get into nuclear Fire Walk with Me, by the way.
My God.
You haven't seen The Return yet.
You gotta see The Return now.
Sorry, continue about Godzilla.
No, yeah.
It's gonna be so hard not to talk about The Return.
It is gonna be really hard. We'll try and avoid spoilers for David.
We'll try our best.
Because Val and I have both seen it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Godzilla was great. Everyone, of course, talks about how the original is a subtext on. There's a lot of subtext related to the dropping of the atomic bomb. It's not subtext; it's just text.
Text, yeah.
And a very compelling and haunting movie that also has a giant lizard in it. So really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Justus.
Yes.
How are you? What have you been enjoying recently?
Earlier I said I was good offhand. I'm not good. I'm bad again. It's just been a hard week, and I've been in a little bit of a hole. I mentioned early on in this podcast, like in one of the earliest episodes, that I had just gone back to therapy. That therapist graduated me, and I haven't been going for a little bit. And I think I graduated too soon, and I need to go back. So I'm going to take some steps in the immediate future to get an appointment again and start going to therapy again, because I have not been great. I don't need to get into all the details here, but yeah, just been going to some places where it's the stuff I talked about on the Heathers episode, right, where I'm lacking motivation and just feel like it's hard to motivate myself to do literally anything. So I have to motivate myself to reach out to a therapist, which is sometimes the hardest part.
Yep.
Right.
I've been there and got the t-shirt.
Yeah. Yep. I've done it a couple times. I know I can do it. I will do it again, and
Hell yeah.
I will take my responsibility for my own mental health seriously and make sure that I'm getting the help I need, etc. But yeah, as far as things that I've been enjoying in media, David and I watched Terrified, which is by the same director of the movie When Evil Lurks, which just came out this year, and I think we talked about it on the podcast as well. And I just wanted to call out that I really enjoyed Terrified. It's a good twist on kind of a haunted house and possession horror movie. It's on Shudder, so if you haven't checked it out, it's scary as shit. There were at least 2, maybe 3 jump scares in that movie that when I was watching it with David and the Podmaster, I fully jolted on the couch next to them. I was definitely the most afraid of the 3 of us. I think the jump scares got me the best out of all 3 of us. But yeah, scary as shit. Highly recommended. Great movie.
Hell yeah.
That's pretty much it. I haven't really been, mostly other than that, I've been listening to music for Music League and all of the slew of various podcasts that are regular listening for me. So Terrified is my only recommendation this week.
Nice.
Okay, let's get into this fucking movie.
Yeah,
Let's crack this fucking thing open.
Yeah,
oh my god.
This was Val's pick.
This was my pick.
Yeah, and we usually talk a little bit here about the history of the movie, our relationships with it.
Yeah, so Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me is came out in 1992. It's as you mentioned, of course, a David Lynch project. It is the not a sequel as you might imagine, but a prequel kind of to the 1989-1990 series Twin Peaks. It asks more questions than it answers. It was pretty universally hated when it first came out. It had a theatrical release, which I understand that's how you had to get the movie made, but I can't fucking imagine walking into a theater
in
1992 buying a ticket for this looks interesting. I never saw the TV show. I heard it got canceled. Let's see what this is all about. I can't even imagine. It would be incomprehensible.
Yeah. If you had never seen a second of Twin Peaks content before in your life, and then you went and saw this in a movie theater, I probably wouldn't walk out, but I definitely wouldn't. It's the time when a walkout would probably make the most sense to me.
Yes. Yeah.
In a movie that's good, by the way.
Yeah. Yes.
Because I can understand walking out of a bad movie. This movie is good, right?
Yes.
But it requires a lot of investment and engagement with a whole bunch of stuff, both from the TV show, but also kind of heady, weird concepts that you kind of just have to engage with, sometimes at face value, sometimes the movie wants you to think about them more deeply. Lynch sort of in general, I think, does this a lot, where he part of the point of his work to me is it's you're supposed to both accept this at face value as a weird thing that doesn't make any sense, and also think about the 12 things that it could possibly mean.
Exactly.
And the point is not that one of those is correct or one of those 12 interpretations is the actual answer. The point is to get you thinking about this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like engaging with it and mulling it over and having it kind of speak to you in various ways is in and of itself the point, as opposed to there being like one reading or one answer to any of this stuff. And that's maybe not what the average American moviegoer is going to want.
Yeah.
Twin Peaks ending explained Reddit.
Right. No, this is Avengers Endgame for weird people. Because I'm almost imagining an alternate universe where this movie was successful.
Yeah.
And these packed theaters of Lynch nerds like clapping when Log Lady shows up.
Yeah.
And losing their fucking minds.
That was me. That was me on my couch. Yeah.
You mean like I do whenever I watch this.
Right.
Yeah.
The first time I watched this for the show, I watched it for the second time, and I like the first shot we see of Dale Cooper, my roommate and I both went, "It's our boy!"
When Kyle MacLachlan shows up in this movie, it is like it really is like Nick Fury showing up like at the end of the credits of a Marvel movie. It's just
completely.
Like, oh fuck yeah.
Yeah.
There he is. I know that guy
so
from the show. Yeah, and then he's like barely in it, which kind of rocks.
He allegedly was hesitant to come back for the movie at all because he was afraid of getting typecast. And so they negotiated him back. This is my understanding. They negotiated him back in a reduced role, and that's what you see in the movie.
Yeah, and it sounds like they tried to bring back most, if not all, of the original cast. Some were unable to do it. Notably, the actress playing Donna was recast for this movie.
And I have thoughts about that, which we can talk about now or later.
Let's talk about it now. So Donna is one of the leads of the TV show. She's a very big character in the TV show. And there she's played by Lara Flynn Boyle, right?
Yes.
And in this movie, she has been recast, and the actress playing the same character is now Moira Kelly.
Yes.
Val.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about this recasting?
My thoughts about this recasting is so I don't know I can't remember offhand what led to the recasting, whether it was Laura Boyle didn't want to come back or they didn't want her back and they wanted to recast her or whatever it was, but recasting Donna to Moira Kelly is maybe the best thing they could have done for this movie.
Correct.
It is all-star casting. It's galaxy brain. It's perfect casting. Moira Kelly is so good as Donna in this movie that I almost want to. I'm anti AI, generative, whatever the hell all that shit is. But I kind of want to see Moira Kelly zapped into
swap her
just
in.
For myself. Yeah.
to the original 2 seasons of Twin Peaks.
I wish so badly that she would have been Donna from the beginning. I love her.
Yes, I am right there with you. 100% agree. I think Laura Flynn Boyle in those original 2 seasons of Twin Peaks, as far as the high school performances go, with the exception of the actor playing James, who I think is the actual worst actor in this entire franchise, this entire series.
One of the worst actors I've ever seen.
Yes, and I think that's intentional, and also, by the way, he gets a lot better in The Return.
He does.
He's clearly he improved his acting chops by the time The Return.
I still hate the character very dearly, but the actor is better.
James aside, I think Laura Flynn Boyle was the weak spot of the TV show, and I think Moira Kelly does such a fucking good job in this movie.
She's incredible.
Yeah, and to your point, Val, of this being like kind of like a galaxy brain, like super intelligent casting decision for this movie, Laura Flynn Boyle, I think, fits the kind of satirical soap opera tone that the TV show has. This movie intentionally and notably abandons that tone largely, right?
Yeah.
And is much more serious and much more heavy and much more dramatic and much more in line with Lynch's other films like Mulholland Drive and Blue Velvet and and so we're taking a more serious kind of dark tone here, and I think having Laura Flynn Boyle in this movie would have she's too camp, we needed something more grounded, and Moira Kelly's giving a really grounded and really affecting and heartbreaking performance here. So
a wrenching performance.
Yeah, we probably spent too long on this because we have so much else to talk about.
There's so much ground to cover. I could talk about Moira Kelly as Donna for an hour.
Yes. David, you've also seen the TV show and
so I need
movie,
to. I've been withholding this.
Yes,
I've talked to you about it a little bit, Justus.
Right.
I have only seen the first 2 seasons of the original Twin Peaks. I haven't seen the return yet. This was my first time watching Fire Walk with Me. Boy. After like anticipating and being, subjected to the hype of the original Twin Peaks show for all of my life, when I watched it a couple years ago, I was so disappointed with it. And my thing is, there's so many things it does that I love. For everything good that it does, it also does like 2 or 3 other things that just kind of bore me and frustrate me.
Yeah.
And most of that season 2, which I understand is kind of a fans agree that season 2 is the low point.
Yes. Yeah. Especially because like Lynch had less creative control. The network was pushing him to do reveals and plot points that he didn't want to do yet.
Yes.
And so
Bob Iger famously interfered and made them wrap up the Laura Palmer mystery by like episode 7 of the second season. So like Bob Iger killed Laura Palmer.
Yeah, so there was like network interference and stuff that probably made it messy and bad, and I agree parts of season 2 are messy and bad. Anyway, continue.
Much of season 2.
Yeah. when it's weird and esoteric and kind of funny, I like it. When we're doing the soap opera thing, it loses me a bit.
So much of season 2 is just it's proto Riverdale.
Yeah.
Like
which, by the way, if you ask me, not necessarily a bad thing. Because I don't know if I've ever admitted this on mic on this show before, but I am a big Riverdale fan. I'm a Riverdale head. I haven't finished the final season yet because I did fall off a little bit. I will finish it, though. And Riverdale sucks shit and is extremely bad.
It's excruciating. I adore it.
Yes, yeah.
It rocks.
My evergreen sentiment toward that show is Riverdale sucks. I love Riverdale.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, it's the dumbest shit imaginable. It's incomprehensible. Nothing makes any fucking sense. And there is something so magnetic about just how batshit insane it is. Yeah. And how the writers clearly don't care about the show being good or making sense.
Yeah, they're just having a good time.
Yeah.
Some connective tissue between Twin Peaks and Riverdale is the incomparable Mädchen Amick.
Yes.
Amick? I can't remember.
I think it's
Mädchen
Amick. I think
Mädchen Amick.
I think so. Yeah. And the Podmaster was telling me, because the Podmaster has a little bit of German. She speaks a tiny bit of German. She was telling me that Mädchen just means little girl.
It just means girl. Yeah.
Yeah. So her name is like little girl Amick. Or yeah. Anyway.
Okay, back to the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll also say that like the show tonally is was a huge problem for me in some places, because I felt like it really didn't handle the darker themes all that well sometimes, like with the drug addiction and sexual assault and the violence. It was hard having that, and also like a plot line where a middle-aged woman thinks that she's a high school girl again.
Yes, or Lucy Moran trying to choose between Andy and Dick.
Yeah.
Which is just the silliest, stupidest thing that happens in
Dick
that show.
Tremaine.
I love Dick Tremaine.
He's such a motherfucker. But yeah,
you're right.
I mean that's a season 2. Yeah.
I I think the movie worked better for me with the darker tone, and I think those themes that were present in the show that are present in the movie were handled much better for me in the movie.
Yeah, it's also the difference between an R-rated studio theatrical movie versus like Twin Peaks was on ABC. Like it was on network television in 1989, which is crazy.
And by the way, nothing like that will ever happen again.
No, never.
There is zero chance that like a auteur filmmaker with like several movies already under his belt, right? He'd already made The Elephant Man, Eraserhead, Blue Velvet by the time he was making Twin Peaks. It's impossible that someone like that will ever get full creative control over a network television show literally ever again. The closest thing that has happened since that is probably like Netflix and David Fincher doing Mindhunter, right? But it's like it's never just going to be on TV like ever again.
Yeah. We're not going to get a Mindhunter Fire Walk with Me.
Actually, now that I think about it, Hannibal was close.
That's
NBC's
true.
Hannibal, but that's pretty much the only other example that I can think of since Twin Peaks. It's pretty singular. Anyway, David's looking like he wants to continue talking about the movie. So we should talk about the movie.
Let's talk about the movie Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah. God, there's so much fucking shit to talk about in this goddamn movie.
Yeah,
let's start with the prologue.
Yeah,
let's
start at the beginning.
We'll probably won't go plot point to plot point, beat to beat the way we do in our normal episodes.
Because again, then we would be here for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I kind of love this prologue.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I almost wish this was its own movie.
Yeah. I sort of feel the same way. And also, we watched the deleted and extended scenes for this record as well.
The missing pieces.
Yeah, Twin Peaks: The Missing Pieces, which was Valerie's mandate.
Yes.
She was like, let's all watch the missing pieces as well. Which this was the first time I'd seen the missing pieces. I had seen This is my third or maybe fourth time with Fire Walk with Me. My first time with the missing pieces. I almost think if you reinserted a lot of the missing pieces, this almost could be its own movie. You know?
Yeah.
Like with all the missing pieces back in it, I feel like it's like 45 minutes long. It's like if you just extended this thing like 35 more minutes, you got a movie on your hands.
Pretty much. There actually is a and this is like next on my list to watch. There's a fan edit of Fire Walk with Me called the Blue Rose Cut that stitches back in not all of the missing pieces, but about 60 minutes of the missing pieces.
Nice.
And I was going back and forth on whether I wanted to make you guys watch that instead. But it's pretty commonly accepted that like the right thing to do is Fire Walk with Me, then the missing pieces, then whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, because the missing pieces in total is also 90 minutes.
Yes.
Or close to it.
Again, we watched 4 hours of movie for this podcast.
Yeah, actually, I watched 6 hours of movie because I watched Fire Walk with Me twice.
Oh, okay.
And the missing pieces once.
Damn.
So I've been
You've been through the
deep.
ringer.
Yeah.
I've been to the Black Lodge and back.
Oh yeah.
So what about you were saying that you kind of wish the prologue was its own movie, David. Like, what about the prologue did you like connect to and and want to see more of?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, just to sum up the prologue, it's about other FBI investigators investigating the murder of Teresa Banks, and one of them disappears, and Dale Cooper from the TV show goes looking, and the trail goes cold, and that is basically what leads us into the original Twin Peaks, before Laura Palmer's murder.
Yeah.
I like this because this section is a little bit more in line tonally with the original show, and specifically like the aspects of the tone that I like from the original show.
Yeah. The prologue's funny. Which the rest of the movie really, really isn't, mostly.
It's so not fun. It's such a bad time.
Yeah, but the prologue is pretty funny.
Yeah.
There's a lot of jokes in the prologue. You mentioned the the agent who's investigating Teresa Banks' murder. His name's Chet Desmond. He's played by musician and actor Chris Isaak.
Yes.
And
the early 90s was a big time for Chris Isaak playing lawmen.
Yes.
He was also in The Silence of the Lambs in an unnamed role.
Yeah. And he's like one of the SWAT guys. And we're watching this, the Podmaster watched the beginning of this with me, and I had forgotten Kiefer Sutherland is in the prologue as well.
Kiefer Sutherland.
And he is... even in terms, especially when you watch The Missing Pieces, there's a couple of deleted scenes with his character. He is, even by Lynch standards, such a little weirdo. Yeah. Which I fucking love.
A baby-faced weirdo in a bow tie, bright-eyed, kind of...
He's like, he keeps wanting to like get in on all of the like secret FBI lingo, because he's like a trainee or something, or like just ranks lower than Special Agent Chet Desmond, right? And so he's kind of like enamored by the whole like special agent like investigation of this murder or whatever. But there's like a combination of him being like really like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, but there's also, he's like weird, there's like a weird tension with him to me, where I'm like, what is this guy's deal? Why is he such a little freak?
He's very like I don't know the polite word to use, but he's kind of like neurotic and like wound tight a little bit. I adore the dynamic between Chris Isaak and Kiefer Sutherland.
Yes.
Like, first of all, Chris Isaak, he's playing the character pretty straight and wooden and flat, and it works so well for me.
You know, something that stuck out to me on this watch was he kind of reminded me of the cowboy from Mulholland Drive. In his delivery.
Yeah. No, I see that.
Yeah.
And it's also an interesting, the performance is kind of an interesting foil to Dale, because Cooper is also, he's not wooden necessarily, but he is kind of rigid, right?
Yes.
But he has so much kind of like boyish joy, and he also radiates, and this is just, Kyle MacLachlan is such a talented actor. He just radiates so much empathy, and you don't get that as much from Chet Desmond. And I like the contrast between the two agents investigating this murder, right? Where Chet Desmond comes across as a little bit like harder and like unapproachable. And even though Cooper's like body posture and like mannerisms are similar, he just is so much warmer and so much brighter, and so I think the contrast is really nice. And I also think starting it with the more like off-putting agent, not to say Chris Isaac's performance is off-putting, but he's like not as like warm and genteel, right? I think starting it with him also gives the audience who has seen the show an indicator that the movie's going to be a little bit darker, because we don't start with Dale. We start with this other guy who's a little colder than Dale, right? Yeah.
There's actually the scene where he introduces himself to the local law enforcement it's insane, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it's such a sharp contrast to the first episode of Twin Peaks when Cooper introduces himself to Sheriff Truman, and it's, Harry, you're all right. Like, you know, it's very like collegial and disarming, and fucking Chet Desmond comes in, you know, quietly, guns blazing, and is like, if you don't like it, you can go fuck yourself.
I love that scene when they're like they're looking for or they want to examine Teresa Banks or whatever.
They want to examine the body.
Everybody in the sheriff's station is just laughing at them.
They're just being dicks. Chris Isaak, the way I would describe his performance is like, he's like a hard-boiled film noir detective, but he's delivering the lines as if he's read them for the first time.
Right.
Yeah. And like he's reading off of cue cards.
Right.
And it works so well for me.
So
it's such a in a in a David Lynch movie, there's always going to be so many huge, crazy, idiosyncratic, off-the-wall performances.
Yes.
Yeah.
And having someone who is the total polar opposite of that, even like the polar opposite of Dale Cooper, who, you know, Kyle MacLachlan's giving that character so much warmth, so much charm, so many flourishes to his facial expressions that you just can't help but love him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, I kind of think Chris Isaac was a revelation in this movie.
Yeah, I think he's great. You know who else is great? And also, speaking of idiosyncratic performances in a David Lynch movie, it's me, David Lynch. I put myself on screen as the first character in my own movie.
Yeah, that was pretty sick.
I have the first line of Fire Walk With Me.
Yeah, the credits end and it's on my face. David Lynch, you are watching a movie that I made.
Written and directed by David Keith Lynch. It's me, Gordon Cole, which is the name of a character that I stole from the movie Sunset Boulevard.
Which is a movie that's on the docket for us. We won't tell you when, but we're going to cover that movie soon.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Anyway, I love the Gordon Cole performance.
Can I
love Gordon Cole.
Can you give me
Cole?
one Lynch?
Break me off a piece.
You may have seen me in my famous role as the Sandcrawler driver in Dune, a movie I never talk about. It's me, David Lynch.
It's
back
me.
on the big screen again.
Alan Smythe. I mean David Lynch, director of Dune. Didn't he Alan Smythe that?
I think there is a cut that is Alan Smithied, but
Smithied.
I don't think the
Sorry,
theatrical
Smythe.
cut
I don't
is.
fucking know what I'm talking about.
The only Lynch I've seen is
Yeah.
Dune,
Yeah.
Blue Velvet, Elephant Man, and now this.
Yeah.
Wow.
I haven't seen a ton either. I saw Elephant Man a long time ago. And need to revisit it. I've seen Eraserhead, I've seen Blue Velvet, I've seen Mulholland Drive, and I've seen obviously all of Twin Peaks, including The Return. I still need to see Inland Empire. I still need to see Lost Highway. Those are gaps for me. Those are like the big ones of his that are gaps for me.
Right.
But yeah.
I was going back and forth on whether I wanted to make you guys watch Fire Walk With Me or Inland Empire, and I decided against Inland Empire because it is, I mean, you'll see when you eventually get around to watch it, there's no way to do it on
You just can't-
podcast. There's no way to talk about it.
Can't talk about it. It's a movie
can't.
that's impossible to talk about.
At that point,
You
we're
just
just a David
can't.
Lynch podcast.
Yeah, literally.
Anyway, so yes,
David Lynch's FBI, just chock-a-block full of like every single agent is a quirked up white boy with a little bit of swagger,
Yes.
busting it down sexual style
Yeah.
to a man. Every single FBI agent up until The Return, and then you add two quirked up white women with a little bit of swagger, busting it down sexual style. Like
Yes.
it's like a coquettified FBI.
my favorite Lynch FBI moment is in The Return, which is and this isn't a spoiler for David, but I just love so much the Wilson. How many times have I told you? This is what we do in the FBI. And there's a lot of that type of thing in this prologue as well, where it's like David Lynch's version of the FBI. I wrote down in my notes, I was like, I wish actual federal law enforcement was like David Lynch's version of it.
Yes.
So fucking bad. Because you know that all of these people are actually just like, conspiring against civil rights advocates and stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas in a David Lynch movie, they're investigating the paranormal, and they're all like charming weirdos. We have Manuel Ferrer as Albert, who is just the fucking man.
I love Albert.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, Gordon Cole has sent them to this other town that's basically like dark Twin Peaks. They're investigating the murder, right? And like we've had the law enforcement laugh at them and everything. They at one point go to a trailer park which is run by Harry Dean motherfucking
Harry
Stanton.
Dean fucking Stanton.
One of our faves on at least one of my faves.
Yeah, we're big Stanton heads here.
Yeah.
We need to find
We
a
stand
good
Stanton.
a good movie of his to cover and just like really zero in on Harry Dean Stanton for a podcast.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like what's a big Stanton performance that would fit the show. Well, I mean, he's like not huge in Alien, but he's a major player in Alien.
Yeah, for
a
sure.
movie that we'll probably talk about eventually. And David will cream his jeans because he's
Sorry that I like a good movie.
No. I'm just saying you really, really love Alien, almost as much as you
Jesus.
love Aliens. Which, by the way, on mic reveal of a thing that David and I have talked about many times. I have not seen James Cameron's Aliens, which is crazy because I am the exact type of person who would have seen that movie, and it's somehow escaped my grasp thus far. And we still don't know whether I'm going to watch it first recreationally or whether the first time I'm going to watch it is for the show. Anyway, Harry Dean Stanton is in this, and he's just good as shit all the time.
Incredible.
He's one of my favorite all-time guys with a face. You know, like it's just like, man, that is just a guy with a fucking face on his head, huh?
It's such a good. So much of Twin Peaks is cast incredibly well.
Yeah.
David Lynch's casting director, Joanna Ray, has cast pretty much all of his like big name headliner projects, and it just like the casting in Twin Peaks is unbelievably good.
Yeah. It really, really is.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot of nice set pieces in this prologue. There's like the creepy trailer park where Harry Dean Stanton is.
The
there's
electricity.
Yep. There's like the shitty little like barn outside the sheriff's station where they examine Teresa's body. They find a piece of paper under her nail with a T written on it, which is
under the nail of the left ring finger.
Yes. Wait.
Which is the ring.
I was gonna say, are you wearing the ring?
I'm wearing the. Are you wearing the Twin Peaks owl ring from the Black Lodge? Yeah, I am.
Val, you can't do that, Val. It connects you to the other world, and
With
you're gonna.
this ring, I quit.
So speaking of the ring, like, just because there's so much movie to cover, we should talk
There's so
about.
much fucking movie
Chet
to
Desmond disappears basically by finding the ring, and he finds it under a trailer where the Chalfonts were living.
Yes.
And before them there was another pair of Chalfonts, which is like a weird one of those weird David Lynch synchronicity things that he likes.
Duality. And...
Yeah, he finds the ring, grabs it, and he disappears after investigating this murder, right?
Yeah.
And that's when Coop gets involved.
That's when we get our boy.
Well, okay. Can we talk about David Bowie?
Yeah, let's
talk about David fucking Bowie.
David,
Let's go.
I would like nothing better than to talk about David Bowie.
We're not going to talk about Judy, but we can talk about David Bowie.
The rest of this podcast is going to be us talking about David Bowie.
Talking about David Bowie in this movie for literally 2
David
minutes.
Bowie.
Tune in next week for everything other than David Bowie.
Because
Tune in next week for the greatest movie ever made, Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me, The Missing Pieces.
Part 2.
the David Bowie scene in the Missing Pieces.
The Return.
Yes.
Oh my God.
This is Agent Philip Jeffries. He's apparently been gone for a while. I don't even know is he brought up in the original show at all?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I don't think they mentioned Jeffries in the show.
If they do, it's very offhand. Like Cooper mentioned Sam Stanley in the pilot just like one time, like offhand. So it's possible, but I don't think they do.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's been gone for a while. In the Missing Pieces, he like teleports from a hotel in Argentina to the FBI headquarters and just walks into the office where Cooper, Miguel Ferrar's character, and Gordon Cole are, and starts just ranting about
Just all
his
gas,
wife
no
Judy.
brakes. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the extended
Not his
scene.
wife.
Yeah, the extended scene goes into more detail, but like he's contacted the Black Lodge spirits.
Yes.
Yeah.
He says I've been to one of their meetings.
Yes. And he points at Cooper, who he has never met because Cole introduces them, right?
Yes.
He points at Cooper and says, "Who do you
Cooper,
think?
this is Philip Jeffries."
Who do you think that is there?"
Yeah.
Right? Which I love, and it's not a spoiler for David because it happens both in The Missing Pieces and at the end of Twin Peaks season 2.
Yes.
But that is an allusion to the fact that there is an evil doppelganger of Cooper, right?
Yes.
And Jeffries, despite never having met Cooper and going missing at some point in the past, right, has seen this future that hasn't happened yet.
Yes.
And the reason,
is it future or is it past?
right? And yeah, the reason for that is basically what we come to understand is that anything that kind of happens in the Lodge world, the Black Lodge world, does not follow like the linear pattern of time.
Yes.
That like stuff does in the human world, right? Is it future or is it past? And we live inside a dream, right?
Yes.
Which
He
is another
said-
thing that's repeated a lot. Yeah.
Yes, that's in The Missing Pieces. That was cut from the theatrical release, which is wild because that is the entire thesis of the show Twin Peaks.
Right.
Of
Yes.
the property Twin Peaks. Like the return is all it like the return is about what happens to David Bowie basically.
Right. Yeah. And it's just so, his performance is so good.
So insane. He's
think-
doing like a Cajun accent.
Yes, yeah, and he's like costumed very fun. He's
Yeah.
wearing like this light grace, and his hair is all crazy, and
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't know how you can describe this performance. It's unhinged, but it also
he
seems
gives
like
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it seems like he as an artist though really was able to plug into what Lynch was going for here.
Yes.
You know, it feels like they're like operating on the same wavelength. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
completely.
Yeah, when I saw his name in the credits, I was like, "Oh, perfect." And then I forgot about him, and he just walked into the movie.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
really does just show up in the movie. Dale Cooper's doing this thing where he keeps like walking in front of a security camera and then going and checking the monitor. And then right before Jeffries walks in, he sees himself on the monitor simultaneously, like even though he's not standing in front of the camera anymore. So it's
Because
again,
there's a bit of a lag.
Yeah. We wouldn't know anything about lags. We weren't dealing with that on this podcast record setup. But anyway, so he then just strolls into the movie, says a bunch of deep lore, insane bullshit, and disappears.
Yeah. Does not explain.
Yes. And there's the great stuff where it's like they call the front desk and be like, "Where'd he go? He was never here," right?
And the front desk also says that Chet Desmond has gone missing.
Right.
And that's what leads us into Chet Desmond, Cooper investigating Chet Desmond. But I was just like, there's someone we're forgetting, and he's 70s glam rock icon David Bowie.
There's an elephant in the room, or rather, in the Returns term, a giant teapot in the room, and his name is David Bowie.
kind of a gigantic mocha pot, sort of. He also this is in the in The Missing Pieces, the scene is kind of extended a little bit, and he gives one of my favorite line reads in maybe anything, movie, TV show, anything. He puts his head down on a desk and he goes, "Oh, hell, God, baby, damn, no."
I love, and I think before he puts his head down, he kind of makes a little noise too.
Yeah.
Like and I was, full disclosure about the way that I viewed my viewing experience of The Missing Pieces, which was probably suboptimal. I skipped my workout yesterday and was working out in my garage today, and between sets, I was watching The Missing Pieces on my phone. Which was probably not ideal. But when I was watching that scene, I was like not looking directly at the screen, and I just heard David Bowie go, "Oh," and put his "Oh, hell, goddamn baby, no," or whatever. And I was like, okay, I need to pick up my phone, rewind, and see what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
Because
That
it's just
that line allegedly is something that David Bowie picked up from hanging around Adrian Belew from King Crimson.
I love that.
Just something that he, I guess, ad-libbed.
That rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the electricity in the room goes all funky. He talks about having seen one of their meetings, or about having been to one of their meetings, they being the Black Lodge spirits,
it was like
above the convenience store.
Above the convenience store, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, also important for the return, because we see the convenience store in the return. Yeah, so that there's
it's
a linking
all
thing.
Connected.
It's all connected. They're evil spirits, or not even evil necessarily. We can talk about it when we get more into the spirits themselves, but yeah, it's interesting, kind of their whole deal.
And is Randall having a hockey game on top of the convenience store too? Is there an extra Clerks? Anybody?
What? What the fuck are you talking about?
It's a Clerks reference. I don't know.
Oh shit. Okay, yeah.
Now I'm not going to talk about Randall.
Well, I'm not going to talk about Clerks. Sorry, I didn't realize it was a Clerks reference.
Yeah, there's the quick stop.
Yeah.
There's the Black Lodge spirits above the convenience store.
Yeah.
And then above them, they're playing hockey on the roof, and then down the street are Jay and Silent Bob.
Oh, that actually would make sense a lot with Clerks' original ending. If just the Black Lodge spirits were above the quick stop, right? The original, everybody knows the original ending of Clerks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Anyway, a much more Lynch, a much more Fire Walk with Me-esque ending than how the theatrical cut ended up ending. Anyway.
Yeah. He also mentions The Ring.
Right.
Which is wild. And then he just kind of zaps out of existence. Everybody leaves the room for various reasons. Gordon Cole asks Albert to go get some mineral water. So Albert's out of the room.
Which, by the way, if we learned anything from Heathers, tells us something about Gordon Cole, that he's asking for mineral water.
His intercom isn't working. He sends Cooper out of the room to try and talk to someone at the front desk. And then Jeffrey's just, zoop, he's gone.
Yeah. So then Dale is investigating Chet Desmond's disappearance, right?
Yes.
And he what's the sequence of events here, gang? What's the next logical thing to talk about to wrap up the
chat? What happens next? So he's talking to Harry Dean Stanton. And is shown over to where Harry Dean Stanton shows him to where Teresa's trailer was.
And now it's gone. Mm-hmm.
And now it's gone, which he says to Chet and Sam Stanley, he says that it was more popular than Uncle's Day at the Whorehouse, which is a really choice line.
I also really like, there's a funny delivery here from Kyle MacLachlan where Harry Dean Stanton, I think, is like, the trailer's that way. Where are you going? And he just goes, I'm going this way.
Yeah.
Which I just love the way he says it.
Dale fucking Cooper.
This way.
There is a scene here where Sam Stanley is taking Teresa's body back to Portland after they got it from the cops to examine it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And one of the things that Desmond mentioned at the beginning of the case was... Oh God, it's a Blue Rose case, and
right, the Blue Rose thing is kind of important.
Yeah,
yes.
At the beginning of the movie,
not in this movie, but later.
Yeah, at the beginning of the movie, there's a character who dances, and the way that she dances and the way that she's dressed suggests certain things about the case.
She's my mother's sister's girl.
She has a blue rose on her outfit, and Sam Stanley asks Chet Desmond what that means, and Desmond doesn't
He's
say.
Like, hey, what the fuck just happened?
which by the way is also the Podmasters experience watching this part of the movie. I'm gonna I know we're all fans of David Lynch, and it sounds like fans of this movie here. The Podmaster does not like David Lynch. She loves Twin Peaks. She likes seasons 1 and 2. She's not a Lynch fan. And largely it's because of him filling everything with so much incomprehensible bullshit, which is what I like about him.
Yes.
But she's not a big fan of it. And I understand. Like, it's not for everybody.
Of course.
It's not how everybody
it's
wants...
for, I would say, very few people.
Yes. But the Lil thing, every single time I've watched this movie with her, which is multiple times, because she doesn't hate Fire Walk with Me, because it's still Twin Peaks enough that she likes it. But every time we get to the Lil scene, she's just rolling her eyes and being like, "What the fuck, David? Like, I fucking hate this shit." And I'm like, I don't know. I think it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I think it kind of rules.
Yeah,
Sorry, Podmaster. I think it whips ass.
Yeah, but I don't think she's wrong to have that opinion.
No, of course not.
Because it is like, it makes no goddamn sense if you think about it.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's like the FBI is communicating things about this case in code, a code which relies upon a woman wearing a specific outfit, doing a weird little dance, and like making like faces like she's sucking on a lemon, and doing
also,
this shit.
Yeah,
like,
and also there's no one else around to be eavesdropping. Like, they're standing in the middle of like a small airfield with no one else around. And
it's like the FBI has like a performance art division, right?
Yes.
And those guys, in order to justify their jobs, are like, well, it's code.
Yeah, these guys all went to Tisch. Like,
they're like Cal Arts grads.
Yeah. David Lynch might be the first character on screen, but this is really when David Lynch enters the movie.
Yes.
It's like, okay.
Okay.
There he is. There's David right there.
I understand what I'm watching now, which and by that I mean I have no fucking idea what I'm watching right now.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing, like that's kind of one of the many things that makes this movie kind of inaccessible is that you have to know what you're about to get with David, like from David Lynch. Like you just have to know that he's going to serve you up a deeply specific meal, and you just have to be ready to eat it. Like, no matter what's under the silver serving tray cover, like you just gotta be ready.
And I think that like the Lil thing is a very intentional like deployment of that thing that you were just talking about, Val, where it's like it kind of is him as the filmmaker being like, get ready to not understand things, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of him like dipping your toe into it a little bit.
Yeah. Get ready for 87 more minutes of this.
Right. But because it's like, it's kind of such a big moment that it like lingers on, it's like, there's going to be more shit that you don't understand. And like, that is sort of the point here.
Yeah.
So prepare yourself for that. Right.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah. But in the scene at the end of this prologue where Stanley's talking to Coop, he mentions that it was something about a blue rose, and so Cooper's like, oh, it's one of Desmond's blue rose cases. And he records a tape to Diane, which I like. That the Diane tapes are like one of my favorite things about the original show. It's such a cool narrative device.
And we do have in the missing pieces, we do have a scene with him talking to Diane, and we never see her. She's like he's in the doorway talking through the doorway into the room that she's in.
Unseen, unheard.
It's very brief, but it's very charming, and it's just Kyle MacLachlan being a little cutie.
I love him. He's my little guy. He's my special little birthday boy.
And he ends the tape with, I feel like this killer is going to strike again, and we cut to the town of Twin Peaks.
This was, I had forgotten how abrupt the cut was, and the combination of like the smash cut to the, not the title card, but like, I mean, basically the title card of the show, the Welcome to Twin Peaks sign, and the music hitting at the same time. I will disclose, I was pretty high. but it
As one probably should be for this film.
yeah, I was the whole day.
It enhances the experience, I imagine.
Yeah, the whole day I was texting my roommate, like, leading up to it. I was like, I kept being like, Twin Peaks Firewalk with me, more like Twin Peaks Get High and Watch with me, and which is not a good joke, but I did send it
I
to you
disagree. I think it's a great joke.
But it just like all of that, and then like seeing Laura and Donna, like I got so emotional that I just closed my laptop and stopped taking notes, and I was like, I gotta be locked in for the rest of it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of choked up a little bit when that iconic theme music from the TV show started playing, and and for me, it's just like I haven't watched the TV show in a couple of years.
Yeah.
But like that music hits, and I was like, oh, I should rewatch Twin Peaks. Like, man, like I'm really feeling this.
Yeah, and I did disclose at the beginning that I was kind of let down by Twin Peaks. But, you know, overall, I think I would say that I like the show. I'm just kind of mixed on a lot of it. But that cut to, basically the title card, and then that music kicking in, I was like, oh,
yeah,
we're coming home.
And so much of that, and a thing that we should probably just talk about in general is Angelo Badalamenti. Badalamenti, is that how you pronounce his last name?
It's either Badalamenti or Badalamenti, I think.
David, you're a resident Italian.
I don't know.
Gabagool.
He recently passed away.
Yes.
Rest in peace.
Yes.
R.I.P. Angela. And so did a couple of years ago, Julie Cruz, the singer of the
house band at the Roadhouse.
Yes, the house band of the Roadhouse.
Oh,
and
the Bang Bang Bar.
There's a version of this song called "Falling" that was written for the show that she recorded lyrics for. And she was she passed away just a few years ago, and it was her birthday earlier this week as we record this.
Oh, well, R.I.P. to both of those wonderful musicians who make this, I think, show and movie work way better just due to the inclusion of their music, right? Like
there is no Twin Peaks without Angelo.
Yeah, he's the music, and this is true of all of Lynch's stuff, I think.
Yes.
Sound is so important to everything he makes.
It's so meticulous.
Yeah. And the music in Twin Peaks especially, like the music is also a huge element in Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive. But in Twin Peaks, it's like so essential. Like it's like you can't separate the narrative or the story beats or the emotional tone of the thing from the music. It's like completely like linked together. And I just think the score works so well in the TV show. I think it works so well here. I think the original stuff that's new in Firewalk with Me is so good and fits the darker tone of this thing so well. Just it rocks. It's such a good score.
One of my notes in for part of the David Bowie scene, I wrote, this sound design is so fucking scary.
Yeah. I was thinking that too, watching The Missing Pieces. There's the more extended scene in the Black Lodge with Cooper and the Man from Another Place, right? And there is where I was really noticing it, although it's present all the time when they're in the Black Lodge. There's that weird kind of eerie hum in the background.
Yes.
And then that being punctuated by the backwards footsteps, because when people walk on the floor in the Black Lodge, the sound of their footsteps is played in reverse. And just that sound, the weird like whoo, and then like the backwards clip clapping of feet is like so uniquely weird and unsettling. And I just
so fucking scary.
Yeah, and it's so simple too. Like it's not a hard thing. But it is like, really precise and really like intentional, and really effective. Like it's so scary.
There's so many points where the sound design almost functions as music. You know,
and it blends together too.
Yeah. There's tons of like ambient kind of low rumbles in the background that build and shift and change.
And then abruptly cut out a couple times, which is bone-chillingly effective. It is so effective when there's that kind of hum that kind of gradually rises into like a roar and then is abruptly cut out entirely and the movie just becomes silent. That shit is so well executed in a couple points in this movie. Yeah.
And going back to Angelo's music for a moment here, there are themes that I remember from the show that I wasn't really into. Like, it is kind of a repetitive score. He leans on a lot of the same themes, but a couple of those themes, like the main theme, and then I guess it's Laura's theme, I'm not sure, but when those hit their emotional peaks, they sell whatever is happening on screen basically every time. And
like
in
you
this
could
movie
put,
too.
You could put it over like a QVC infomercial and it would be chilling. Like it's so affecting. You
could put it over the movie that David and I watched last week for the podcast, Santa's Sleigh. put some Angelo Badalamenti over Bill Goldberg, doing wrestling moves on people dressed
killing
as Santa
people with
Claus.
candy canes.
Yeah, and you'll just be like, it's so beautiful.
I know.
It says so much about the human spirit.
So my roommate Charlotte and I do this thing when we watch. So are you aware of the Twitter and Instagram accounts Sign Peaks?
Yes, I absolutely am.
Okay, so for a listener who doesn't know, it basically it's a meme account, it's a gimmick account that mashes up Twin Peaks and Seinfeld, which is made easier by the fact that a lot of actors from Twin Peaks have made their way over to Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Like both of Susan Ross's parents are played by Twin Peaks alumni, and we've been watching so much Seinfeld lately that whenever something like weird and Lynchian happens in Seinfeld, I will just have Laura Palmer's theme queued up on my phone, and I'll just swell it up, and it makes it so weird. Like try it sometime. It's wild.
That rocks.
But it changes. The score is so good. It changes the tone of whatever you're watching. It just grabs the handbrake and yanks it.
Yeah, I saw the one on the Sign Peaks account shared where it's George finding out that Susan died from licking the envelopes.
Yeah.
It's so fucking funny. It's so
good.
Anyway.
But yeah, I am buying whatever Angelo is selling.
So we're in the second part of the movie. We're past the prologue. We here are meeting Laura Palmer, and I say meeting because she does appear in the original Twin Peaks series, but it starts with her dead. Right?
Yes.
So this is really your real introduction to Laura Palmer as a character.
Yeah.
And this is so interesting. And Val, you as the woman on this podcast may be able to kind of speak to what my ideas about this were more eloquently. But there is something very interesting to me that I think it's a uniquely not a unique experience to women, but something that women probably experience more, where everybody has an idea of who you are, and who you are is distinct and separate from that idea, right? And there's two Laura Palmers, right? There's the one that exists in everybody's head, which we meet first in the TV show after she's dead, right? And we learn who she is through other people's accounts of her. And then we actually in this movie get a chance to meet Laura herself, and she's the same but different. Right? Yeah. Which I think is like, I don't know, it felt, I know it's written and directed by a man, right? But it feels like there's something here about the experience of women moving through the world that like
Yes.
I kind of wanted to like latch onto a little bit, but I just like didn't know.
Yeah,
I
no,
know
completely.
how, you know?
That's one of the reasons why Twin Peaks just generally was so affecting to me, is because it, like, yes, written and directed by a man, but I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'll go on record now. David Lynch knows what it is like to be a teenage girl.
Yeah.
He just does. I don't know how. I don't know, if it's the transcendental meditation. I don't know if he, has a past life bleeding through something. He gets it. Like what you mentioned just now of, especially being a, like a teenage girl in a small town, like everybody has a very specific idea of who they think you are. And it, especially to be a young girl, everybody just wants to get their claws in you. So much of Twin Peaks is about men wanting something from her.
Yes.
It's trying to like extract things from her without giving back.
Yeah.
And how that affects a person,
right?
Because that's something that this is something that women just have to go through in a way that men don't. And it was so. I mean, this is one of the reasons why you can't watch Firewalk with me until you've watched Twin Peaks. Is not just that it's incomprehensible, but because you have to set up the symbol of Laura Palmer and who, what she represents and what she, what the rest of the town, what everyone who knew her thinks about her posthumously. You have to have all of that set up so that you can get the payoff of seeing her as a character, with her own, her own internality. And is that a word? Internality? Her own.
If it's not, I understand what you mean.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like her own, sense of self.
Right.
And you see why she has the whole town of Twin Peaks just wrapped around her finger.
Yes.
Like that. The first scene she's in, you're just like, oh my God, that, like, I get it,
Right. Yeah, you get like why everybody's in love with her.
Yes.
Right. But also, there's so much like pain and trauma that she's going through, right? And you kind of immediately understand both how charming and lovely she is, and the inner darkness that she's experiencing. And it really uniquely kind of endears you to her, because even when she's doing things, even when she's making decisions that are bad for her, right? And you kind of wish better for her, right?
Yes.
It's never that you don't understand why she's doing these things.
Exactly.
Like
it makes you understand pretty much right away.
Right.
Because that's the other thing is, like, in the whole original run of the TV show, the whole, like, the kind of recurring question is, how does she have time for all these extracurriculars? Why is she never home? Why is she, how does she fit it all in? How is she the homecoming queen and doing Meals on Wheels and tutoring an autistic child?
Yes.
And like all these different
and also
things.
is a sex worker
and
is
also
doing
is a
drugs
sex worker.
and
and like all of these, like, you're like, how does she manage it? And then you find out that the short answer is cocaine. But
tons of cocaine. She
so
never
much
sleeps.
cocaine. She never, and which is because
Yes,
which
there's a very
we'll
good
get to.
yes, there's a very good
we'll get to
reason
later,
why
but
she
there's-
doesn't want to be at home in her bed.
Yeah. And like as soon as you see that, you're like, of course,
Right.
I wouldn't either. Like,
Yeah.
it makes you it makes you see after 30 episodes of network television of people talking about her. Well, not 30. There's a lot of season 2 that's not about Laura Palmer, but
Yeah.
but after
It is instead about James Hurley having a weird
having
relationship
the
with a much
biggest
older
forehead
woman.
of all time.
I will say, just to jump in about James,
Yes.
Yeah.
I liked James in this movie way more than I did in the show.
I like him better in this movie than I did in the show, and I like him in
Yeah.
The Return even more than I like him in this movie. I think each progressive,
James just gets better.
Each subsequent time James appears in Twin Peaks, I'm like, I like him better now. Oh, I
Yeah.
like him even better now.
Yeah. This movie does totally, it's like with both James and Donna, it is basically, it is character assassination by retcon. Like it, with what you see of what the two of them know about Laura, it makes their conduct in the show kind of indefensible.
Yeah, totally, right?
They knew so much
Which-
about Laura.
Which is interesting because that is such a Lynch thing as well.
Yes.
To basically be like, even the characters who seem the most innocent and disconnected from all the darkness here, right? Such a Lynch thing is like nobody's perfect, and
Nobody's hands are clean.
right, and that we're all kind of that all people in small charming American towns are kind of secretly monsters. Like that's the thing that he
David
loves.
Lynch is so
Yeah.
fucking scared of like middle America.
Oh, yeah.
So the scariest thing to David Lynch is like a white picket fence in a small suburban town with a stay-at-home mom and a dad who works at the office. Like,
Yeah, he's terrified of sitting rooms.
yeah, it's like it's in Eraserhead. It's in Lost Highway. It's like he has so much to say about just like this image of like the all-American family,
Yeah.
Well, and I
not
get
much of it is good.
I get the sense that like Laura Palmer is torn between all these different versions of herself, and she can never really actually be herself. Like it seems like she can when she's with Donna,
Yes.
sometimes, but actually a lot of those scenes were left in the missing pieces, and I kind of wish they were in the theatrical cut because
Exactly.
what ends up defining Laura Palmer for me is just all of these extreme emotions that she's feeling at any given time. And then when she discovers that, Killer Bob is possessing her father, it's like now she can't even be herself in her own house. And it just drives her insane, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, at no point do you ever get to see Laura Palmer just being herself.
Right.
I watched this twice, and initially that distanced me from the movie a little bit. I feel like there was a wall between me and the character. And rewatching it, I got the sense that like obviously no teenage girl should go through this. No one should have to deal with the kind of emotional stress and abuse that Laura Palmer is dealing with. So of course I'm going to empathize with her.
It's very brave of you to say that.
Thank you.
A hero.
But I just wish we had a couple more scenes with her and Donna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think those ones that were left out of the movie but are in the missing pieces were some of my favorite missing pieces.
Yes.
I really like how clearly safe and cared for she feels at Donna's house, right?
Yeah.
And there's also kind of this very interesting thing that we see with Laura's mom, right? But also with the Palmers, where there is sort of an unspoken understanding among some people in Twin Peaks that not everything is okay in the Palmer house. Right?
Yes.
And nobody talks about it and nobody acknowledges it.
Yes.
Right?
Sarah knows.
Yes.
Sarah Palmer knows that something is wrong.
Yes, and I even think she knows. I think she probably knows more than she is admitting to herself.
Yes.
Right? We're jumping way ahead here, but like towards the end of the movie, when Leland gives her the glass of milk and she drinks it in front of him, right? That moment, I was like, oh, I think fully knows, and I don't think she is acknowledging it to herself, but I think deep down in there, I think if she sat and thought about it, she knows what's going on, and that's why
Yes.
she's constantly chain smoking cigarettes and drinking red wine every single time you see her in the movie, because she is trying to prevent herself from becoming lucid enough to admitting to herself what she sort of has already figured out.
Yeah. The first time you see her in the pilot of Twin Peaks, when she's in the kitchen on the phone, she's chain smoking.
Yes.
Like she all from the get-go.
Yeah. I also think, and we can't talk in too specific terms about The Return,
Yes.
but I also
Oh my
think
God.
Sarah Palmer's character in The Return
Oh my God.
reinforces everything we just said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. Anyway, so
Watch The Return, guys.
yeah. I want to rewatch it after rewatching this, where I'm
Yeah.
like, I got to go back to that and like pick it apart more, because there's so much interesting thematic stuff in there. There's so much of the interesting like lore stuff. It's just but Twin Peaks is a bottomless pit, and we are finding ourselves
is.
falling down it and not talking
Yes.
about like.
Let's yank ourselves back up.
But anyway, so like in this early part with Laura, you're basically seeing what her life looks like, right?
Yes.
She basically has two boyfriends. She's dating James and Bobby at the same time. And she's doing a shit ton of cocaine, and she's best friends with Donna. And her home life is initially just maybe a little tense, right? But there are some moments, and some of them are in the missing pieces and not in the theatrical cut, but there's some moments of the Palmer family kind of being somewhat happy and normal, even if there is kind of like a weird tension that like is running underneath that. But yeah, so that's kind of what's going on early on in the movie. By the way, we've talked about James a lot. We haven't really talked about Bobby Briggs.
Bobby fucking Briggs.
How do you feel about Bobby Briggs, David?
It's Bobby. I don't know. I like him more than James.
Yeah.
But also,
Obviously.
You
it's been a
would
while
almost
since
have
I've
to.
seen the show, but the Bobby, Leo, Shelley stuff
Yeah.
gets so taxing for me in the show.
That stuff does get a little convoluted.
I found it interesting in the movie here where James is very clearly in love with Laura and is acting very tenderly towards her.
Yes.
And then Laura basically treats Bobby Briggs like a plaything.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
he kind of goes along with it.
He kind of
I'm
knows.
not sure. Yeah.
Yes, I think the last scene with them, where they're in the basement and she's asking for the
Yes.
coke, and he gives it to her, and he says like, "You don't want me, you just want the blow," and then
Yeah.
he gives it to her anyway, very nicely, right?
Yeah.
That is the moment to me where I'm like, oh. To your point, David, like he knows that she's not in love with him, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that she's sort of using him, and he loves her so much that he's like, I will allow myself to be used by this
Yeah.
person who I love.
You asked
It's
me about
a devastating scene.
Yeah.
You asked me about the wrong member of the Briggs family to speak thoroughly about.
Yeah.
If you'd asked me about Major Briggs,
Yeah.
we would be here all day because Major Briggs
yeah.
is my favorite character in the TV show.
And he
I
doesn't
fucking love
aside
Major
from Dale
Briggs.
Cooper.
Yeah, he doesn't appear in the theatrical version, but we do get Major Briggs just reading aloud out of the Book of Revelation.
I was so
in the
I
missing
was
pieces.
so happy to see him.
Yeah. Major Briggs fucking rocks. Anyway, so yeah, we have this little intro, basically reintroduction to the town of Twin Peaks early on, and see all of that stuff going on. And then like the next relatively big thing to jump to is kind of the reveal that we talked about, right?
Yes.
Because there's a ton in here. We could, we're not going to go scene by scene, but basically where we get to maybe about 2/3 of the way through this thing, it's earlier than I remembered it being. Is Laura realizing that the thing that has been tormenting her is her father, which we already alluded to, right? And we basically learn, she mentions it at one point, that she has been being raped in her bed. She says, I think like the way she phrases it, I think is like, he started visiting me when I was 12 years old, right? So this has been happening since she was 12, which is really really horrible and really fucking dark. And the show, I don't know if the show ever uses the word rape, but the show does talk about what Leland was doing to Laura.
Yes.
It's way more specific in this movie. And so she basically has an understanding that she is being sexually assaulted, and attributes it to sort of this mysterious figure that she doesn't know what it is. There's two ways to read this, right? There's probably more than two because it's Lynch, but there's two ways that I thought of to read this, right? Which is one, at face value, right? You can take this as like the textual reading, where it's like Bob, this supernatural entity, is committing these sexual assaults, and because of his supernatural nature, she is unable. There's like supernatural interference, and she's unable to remember that it's her father or see that it's her father or whatever, right? Yeah. The other reading is obviously that she is suppressing this.
Yes.
Right? And her mind is trying to defend her against this reality, and is refusing to acknowledge, again, what she already knows. Much like with Sarah Palmer, right? And I think the Bob thing and the Black Lodge thing as a metaphor for that works better in this than anywhere else in Twin Peaks, right?
Yes,
completely. This is where we get the most clear, weirdly, thematic, the most thematic clarity in Twin Peaks, I think, is in Fire Walk with Me, because it's basically like David Lynch is no longer being mysterious about this. He's basically like, Bob is a metaphor for... like, again, he says it in the show, but the evil that men do, right? And so Bob is not literal. Bob is a manifestation of real life evils, like a guy raping his own daughter. Yes. Right? Which is, it's really dark and really upsetting.
Yeah.
And
it's so hard. It's unbearable to watch.
Yeah. The moment where she realizes it, which, by the way, we haven't talked about Sheryl Lee's performance yet.
Oh my God.
In this movie.
I can't get started on Sheryl Lee because I will be here all day.
Suffice to say, Val, based on your reaction, I think you and I are on the same page as far as this is concerned. I think she is absolutely heart-wrenching in this movie. Yes. I think it is some of the best acting I have seen from anyone in a Lynch movie, which is high praise, because he has very good actors and directs them very, very well. The scene where she sees Leland come out of the house, because she goes up to her bedroom, she sees Bob looking for her secret diary, right? She runs out of the house, hides in the bushes, and then the next thing she sees come out of the house is her dad, right? And that moment, I forgot how affecting that was. And when I was watching it this time, I was like really, really heartbroken. I don't know if you can see through my shitty laptop webcam, but I did, like, I all the hairs on my arms are standing up, like, just thinking about it. It's so David, that's how Val and I feel about this moment in this performance. How did you feel about all of this?
She's good.
You heard it. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I can add. She's great. I just know that I'm watching this movie and interacting with this movie at a slightly different level than both of you are.
I think that's starting to become clear on the pod record, because Val and I keep gushing for 20 minutes at a time. and then
David's like, yeah, it's pretty good. Which is good.
I mean, she's good. She's great, and she's great in Twin Peaks too, but now we have the chance to really actually meet Laura Palmer, and I think she has a lot. This movie asks a lot of her, and she really delivers in pretty much every regard on the acting front. I also want to talk about Ray, motherfucking Wise.
Yes. Holy shit.
One of my favorite character actors ever. He should be in more things.
Ray Wise is maybe one of our greatest living actors, and also I think that we should keep him in a bunker under 1,000 feet of concrete. He is so scary in this.
Yeah.
They should keep him in one of those prisons that Magneto can't get out of.
He's incredible in this.
Yeah.
He's great in the show too, but here again, there's just I don't know if I'm interpreting this correctly, but I get the sense that there are moments where he is possessed by Bob and other moments where he's not, and when he's not aware that this is going on.
Yes.
And there are so many moments where he has to just turn on a dime between those two extremes of his performance, and he nails it so well.
Yeah. I think the only time in the movie it didn't work for me, and this is a missing piece that I think it was correct for them to cut, is the missing piece where the deleted scene where Laura's in the bushes at night and Leland's walking toward the house and he keeps kind of looking over towards the bushes and she's like, just go in the house. That one didn't really work for me because he's a little Terminator in that one.
Yeah.
He's like a little too blank.
He's got like Predator vision.
Right. But and that's a deleted scene, so I can't count it against the movie, right? But every other scene in the movie, I think you're totally right, David. I think when he has to be Laura's dad, he is warm and empathetic, and you feel for him. And then when he is Bob, when he's possessed by Bob, he's the scariest fucking thing I've ever seen. He does the transition so fast. And there's a lot of moments too where which is also what you were just getting at. There's like a lot of moments where he realizes what he's done or that Laura isn't safe with him, and there's so much vulnerability in this performance. He's so afraid and of himself
and he's
and what he's gonna do.
He's like afraid and confused and completely breaks. And there's one scene here where he is very mean to Laura at dinner. And Laura runs up to her room, and he comes up later afterwards and is crying, and he tells her that he loves her. And I think Angelo turns on the music here, and we hit one of those big emotional swells. One of the best acted scenes in this movie, for sure.
I think so. There is spoiler alert. There is a literal, actual rape scene, incestual rape scene in this movie. Weirdly, I think the scene that we were just talking about was like almost more viscerally upsetting to me than the literal rape scene, because it's such a realistic depiction of abuse. And that's the thing that really gets under your skin about that scene.
It's horrifying.
Where he's like grabbing her hands and being like, there's dirt under your nails, you need to wash your hands before you eat dinner. And he's like, it's
the ring finger on the left hand.
And it's so, he's being so like harsh and mean and abusive to her, and she is like so like realistically upset by it. Where she kind of like closes up and kind of takes the approach that a lot of victims of abuse take, where it's like, I'm going to shut down to not give them anything to react against, and then when he comes up to her room and apologizes, it's what keeps people in the cycle of abuse, because it's like they do the thing, they do the abusive behavior, and then they feel genuinely bad about it in some cases, and apologize, and it's like so easy to just see the person that you love in there when they're not being abusive toward you. And to be like, okay, like cool, it's behind us, let's move on. And it's like, it's gonna happen again, and it's gonna be worse the next time. And it's just it really was skeeving me out watching it this time.
It's awful to watch. I mean, so much of this movie for like, I was just like full body clenched, like with my, like the self hug maneuver. There were points when I was just clenched like this for like 10 or 15 minutes at a time.
Yeah,
just like it's unrelenting, and this scene is one of the worst ones.
Yeah,
because this is after she knows at this point.
Yeah, is the hand washing after she knows?
I think it is.
Okay. Yeah, but either way, it's like so.
Yeah, and Sarah is just watching it happen.
Yeah, it's the scene right after she finds out, because she runs to Donna's house and then comes back for dinner that night.
Right, that's right, because she walks in and he's just sitting at the table waiting for her.
Yeah,
which is so scary.
In the missing pieces, you see him call the Haywards' house and call her home. Which is just gut-wrenching. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's the next scene after she knows what's happening. God, yeah.
So then there's the dream sequence, which is essentially Laura, she was given a painting by a weird little mysterious boy.
Played by, I believe, one of David Lynch's sons.
David Lynch's son, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And
you couldn't tell by looking at him.
Yeah.
He basically looks like a little David Lynch.
We see the Chalfonts? We see the Chalfonts in the series too, right? Or
these are the Chalfonts.
Yeah, but do we see them? Do we see them in the show, or is it only in
Firewalk? They're the next door neighbors.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Of Harold.
Right. Little boy Chalfont, David Lynch Jr.
Pierre, I think.
Pierre Lynch.
Gives... the character, I think.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were literally telling me that David Lynch named his son Pierre, and I was immediately like, yeah, sure, makes sense.
Yeah, just run with it.
He likes French ladies. I don't know.
He sure. Oh boy, does he love French ladies.
And he just announced that he's getting divorced. Yeah.
Today it broke.
Yes. Breaking Lynch news. Except now this will be 2 weeks from now, but whatever.
Just a fun bit of color. I was scrolling through my phone and I saw that news at the counter at Bob's Big Boy this morning. Which, if you're not aware, Bob's Big Boy, the diner in Burbank where David Lynch conceptualized Twin Peaks and wrote half of it out on napkins.
Yeah.
Killer Bob's namesake, Bob's Big Boy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he just named Killer Bob after Bob's Big Boy.
That's funny. Did you fall to your knees in the Bob's Big Boy?
No, but I did look over at his picture, which is hanging up above the door.
Well, and it wasn't Bob. Wasn't the actor actually a crew member who was just in a shot, and then
he was a set dresser?
Yes.
Yeah, and then David Lynch decided, that's the killer then.
Yeah, I think as the story goes, they were rolling, and he was accidentally still in frame.
Yeah, he was stuck behind a dresser or something.
Yeah, and David Lynch was obsessed with that visual, and he's like, let's just put this guy in. And that's how we got Bob, which is crazy because he is so fucking good.
He's so fucking good.
But anyways.
He's just a sweet gay man from San Francisco who was working as a set dresser
and has the most terrifying face of all time.
Yeah. Oh my god, this is a little bit off topic, and you can cut this if you want, but the first time my roommate and I watched Twin Peaks, which was this year, we started on February 23rd, and the jump scare, the quick cut of Sarah's vision of him crouched beneath the bed, that scared me and Charlotte so fucking bad that it was pitch black at night when we watched it. we made a rule for the next like 8 episodes that we were not allowed to watch Twin Peaks at night or with the lights off.
Yeah, which is funny because like that's the scariest thing that happens in the whole show.
Yeah.
But it does like set you up to like, oh shit, like this might just do this at any time, which I think like the Lynchian jump scare, this is taking the sidebar even more sidebar, but I think the Lynchian jump scare is intended that way, where it's like a device that he uses to just put you on edge for the rest of the movie, right?
Yeah.
And he usually inserts it at a point where after that he wants you to just be tense the whole time, right?
Yeah.
Where he's like, now you cannot be safe here, right? Because I've used this device in this way.
Yeah, that's what really locked me into those first few episodes, and then 10 episodes later, I'm like, what the fuck are we doing with Norma's ex-husband?
What, you mean you don't love beloved Twin Peaks character Ernie Niles?
Val, you really pulled that out of thin air, because I was like, I don't know what the fuck David's talking about.
No. I'm sorry. You're talking about Hank Jennings, which is her husband still. Who she hasn't asked for a divorce yet. No, Ernie Niles is her mother's new husband.
There are so many characters in this fucking
There's so many
universe.
fucking...
So we were talking about Bob. Bob is in this dream sequence.
Yes.
So basically, like she dreams that she goes into the painting. The way that it's done is actually visually like extremely cool, where she's like opening the door to her bedroom and she looks over her shoulder at the painting, and she's and in the painting she's opening the door to the room in the painting, right?
Yes.
And
this painting that was given to her by Mrs. Tremond.
Yes, a little demon boy.
Chalfont.
Yes.
Yeah. Who you may recognize Mrs. Tremond as the woman from Seinfeld who Jerry steals the marble rye from.
Oh. Wow, just another Sign Peaks connection.
It's a Sign Peaks connection. That's in the same episode as Grace and Warren Frost, Grace Zabriskie, Sarah Palmer, and Warren Frost, Doc Hayward as Susan Ross's parents. That episode is chock-a-block with science. Anyway, Laura is given this painting in the parking lot of the Double R Diner,
right?
And in the middle of loading her car up for a Meals on Wheels delivery.
Yeah, and then in this dream sequence, she's in it, and this is the room above the convenience store, right?
Yes.
Is what she dreams here, essentially, I think, right? Which is there's Bob and the man from another place sitting at a table.
Oh, no, Mike's not there. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a guy who's doing a weird little dance, and his face is painted completely like paper white, and he's got a long pointy nose. There's a guy with like a long ass very fake looking beard, and he keeps
a woodsman
slapping his knee. It is a woodsman. David doesn't know about the woodsman because he hasn't seen the return. This is the water, and this is the well. Just because we have microphones.
I did see that he was played by Jürgen Prochnow, German actor Jürgen Prochnow, who I know best as Duke Leto Atreides in David Lynch's Dune.
Yeah, motherfucker. He sure fucking is.
And here he has no lines. He's just slapping his knee in reverse.
Yep.
That's his whole thing. But so Bob and the Man from Another Place here. What? Okay. This scene is longer in the missing pieces, but even in the theatrical cut, I had an idea of what I think is going on here. What do y'all think is happening? What are the Man from Another Place and Bob doing in this scene?
Don't look at me while you ask that question, because you know I don't have a good fucking answer for you. I don't. There's the only phrase that comes to mind is like an exchange of evil. Like there was a transmission of the evil forces governing the Black Lodge between these characters.
Yeah.
I guess.
Val, what do you think's going on here?
So buckle up. Take notes, kids.
I literally just heard your knuckles crack through your mic.
So
was like, let's dive into it, baby.
Let's fucking do it.
Oh, we're wheeling out the Pepe Sylvia board here.
Yeah, truly. So, I mean, basically, they're having an exchange about. So there's this undercurrent of disagreement between Killer Bob, the man from another place / the arm, and Mike, who we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah.
Not Mike, Bobby Briggs's friend, but Mike, Killer Bob's.
Not Mike, who's the man.
Not friend.
Because Mike is the man.
Mike is the man. Famously, Mike's the man.
But the other Mike.
Yeah. You're all following along, I assume.
Our listeners are listening to this episode is going to be like the experience of watching this movie or Twin Peaks: The Return.
Yes.
Like, it's going to be so perplexing. Anyway.
Yeah. So there's this undercurrent throughout the show and throughout the movie and The Return of this adversarial relationship between Mike and Killer Bob, with the man from another place kind of in between. So, and this is all my best estimation of what's going on. I'm going to speak in definitive terms, but it's just what I'm like pretty sure is. All of this could be wrong. So, the man from another place is sort of the intermediary, I guess, between Killer Bob, who is an evil demon spirit, and Mike, who is also a killer demon spirit, but is trying to do good. Because in the show, he mentions that he and Bob used to kill together, but then he, quote, saw the face of God, and tried to repent. In attempting to repent, chopped off his own left arm, which had a tattoo on it, which symbolized something. I can't remember what the tattoo was.
Yeah.
He chopped off his own arm. The arm became the man from another place.
Yes.
And they feed on. Okay, so they feed on a substance called garmonbozia.
Garmonbozia.
Parentheses, pain and suffering.
Yes.
Or pain and sorrow.
Yes, they eat pain and sorrow.
Yes, it is
whatever
creamed
these
corn.
spirits are. Yes, it's also creamed corn. Do you see creamed corn on that plate? Yeah. So yes, they consume pain and sorrow.
Yes, and Bob goes out into the world to commit evil acts and bring it back into the Black Lodge, and distributes it among him and Mike and the arm.
Right.
And there is a disagreement about Killer Bob is being selfish with the garmonbozia. I can't... I couldn't remember what it was called at first when I first learned about it, and so I in my head I call it Gazorpazorp, from the television show Rick and Morty. So they want the garmonbozia, and that's the what they feed on to sustain themselves.
Yeah.
So you're saying Bob is a capitalist in the garmonbozia economy, but he doesn't realize that the Black Lodge is a communist socialist. Where the garmonbozia must be equally distributed.
Right.
He's literally, yes.
He's trying to be selfish with the garmonbozia. He's like, well, I created all of this capital. I generated this garmonbozia, so it should all go to me.
Killer Bob is a job creator. That literally is what's happening.
Yeah. So Val, I think that is mostly my interpretation of this as well.
Yeah. You'll notice I didn't answer the question of what is going on in this scene.
Right. Yeah. I think what's going on in this scene is basically everything that you just said, and also it seems to me that the man from another place is like making the decision here to like agree with Bob or support Bob in going out and doing more evil acts right?
Yes.
It seems like he's like buying in here, which
Yeah.
is interesting because their relationship in the TV show is kind of ambiguous and you never like know whether they're working together or not. And it seems to me here to clearly indicate that all of these spirits are kind of like together in this like, okay, Bob's the greatest at creating pain and suffering. We're gonna let him go out and do that, right? Because it literally gets us all fed, right?
Yes.
If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
That's right.
Bob just loves doing it. Let him do it, man.
He does.
We all got to eat the garmonbozia.
Bob loves making garmonbozia.
And he loves making it. So, you know, it's a win-win. And this is so interesting to me because, and I think David Lynch with the spirits of the Black Lodge, I do think that this is not just nonsensical and means nothing. I think he is trying to say something here. I think there's a very interesting thing here and in the original series as well as in the return, but probably spelled out again most clearly in this movie, which is the spirits of the Black Lodge, with the exception of Bob, who is like very clearly and textually evil, right?
Yes, the epitome of evil, the apex of evil.
The rest of the spirits of the Black Lodge, at least to me, I'm like, I don't know if these are evil, if this is a cosmic evil necessarily.
Right.
It's almost more like David Lynch commenting about kind of like the cruel apathy of the cosmos, right?
Yes.
Against our own, like against humanity, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like
it feels kind of Seventh Seal-ish almost, like just like the cruel silence.
Yeah, where it's like they don't necessarily wish us ill. They just don't. We're so like insignificant and unimportant to them that our pain and suffering is their equivalent of creamed corn.
Yes.
Right? Where it's like the worst thing that you can imagine, which is like a girl being repeatedly raped by her own father and then murdered by him, right? All of that amounts to like a spoonful of creamed corn for them, because it's like and it's not
one
because
night's dinner,
right? It's not because they delight in evil. It's because they're kind of beyond good and evil, right? I think that the idea with these spirits is sort of like the concepts of good and evil are like to them like human. That's human stuff. It's human issues.
Yeah,
and
it's
they're
irrelevant.
like and they're like at a level of existence that's just beyond that, and how that's a little bit maybe more terrifying than if all of them are just evil, right? Anyway, we can probably stop talking about the Black Lodge spirits now because we do have other things to talk about. I just like watching it this time, just those ideas were spinning around in my head, and I was like, I think this is Lynch basically saying like talking about how the universe is just kind of coldly indifferent toward all of us, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, there's also, I mean, there's also a little bit of like the same indifference of the town of Twin Peaks kind of turning a blind eye to this horrific abuse.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not, you know, it's not as direct, but there is, as with so many things in Twin Peaks, broadly speaking, just a parallel.
Yeah. In this dream sequence, so we have the room above the convenience store stuff that we just talked about at length. But we also in this dream sequence see, I think it's maybe even before this, I might be getting stuff out of order, but it's fine. We see Laura turn over in her bed and she sees Heather Graham.
Annie Blackburn
from the TV show, and Annie says that she's been with Dale and wait, who's the other person? Laura.
Dale and Laura.
Yeah, she's with Laura and Dale. The good Dale is in the Black Lodge and he can't leave.
Yeah. Write it in your diary.
Write it in your diary. Yeah. And so this is another thing where just like time is working in a weird way, right?
Yeah.
And in the missing pieces, we see that Annie says this in the hospital bed that she is in at the end of Twin Peaks season 2.
Yes.
Which is long after Laura has died. Right?
And Dale also kind of reaches through time here at the end. I think at the end of season 2, and he tells Laura not to take the green ring.
Yes. Which also happens in this dream sequence, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens a couple of, like, she has a recurring
Sorry, that's
dream.
literally what you were just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. She has, like, recurring dreams of Dale Cooper.
Yeah. So the last piece of the dream is Dale telling her not to take the ring, I think.
Yes.
And then she wakes up and she has the ring. And
Freaks the fuck out.
freaks out.
As you would.
If you pulled something from a dream. like it's Freddy Krueger's hat.
Yeah. Surprise, bitch.
But then, like, the next morning, she actually wakes up and doesn't have it.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the next kind of big sequence here is the roadhouse.
Yeah.
And then the club across the Canadian border.
Yes.
Yes.
Which, by the way, the way they cut it in the theatrical version, there's a
It's
scene
insane.
of them. There's a scene of them driving to the sex club across the Canadian border in the missing pieces, but you don't get that in the theatrical cut, and it does kind of seem like they just went from a room in the roadhouse to another room that's a sex club.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't tell at first. But the cut is also on a red light that is streaming down through the ceiling.
Yeah.
And it immediately looks like they're in hell.
Right.
Like and that shot of it's like looking up from the bottom of the pit of hell.
Yeah.
I love all of the Roadhouse stuff, in terms of atmosphere. Some of the plot stuff and the narrative stuff gets really lost here, and there's a lot of more like esoteric dialogue, but the Roadhouse is lit really well. There's a great musical sequence. Laura kind of goads Donna, because Donna's just shown up, goads Donna into coming along with her with these guys, because Donna's like wants to figure out what's going on, and Laura's like, okay, you want to see how my life is? You'll come with me.
Yeah, and this is the thing with Donna's character which is developed a lot in the missing pieces, where like she loves Laura so much and is such a good friend and wants her to be okay and wants to understand what's going on with her so much that like she is like trying to enter Laura's world to get a better understanding of her. And initially,
and like kind of trying to pull her out of it.
Right. Yeah. And Laura's kind of trying to push her away a little bit. But here at the Roadhouse, she's like, Laura has started her downward spiral since she realized that like Bob was her dad. And she has spiraled down so far now.
Accelerated her downward spiral.
Yeah. She was already downward spiraling, but it's accelerated here. Yeah. So by the time we're at the Roadhouse, she sort of is basically like, okay, fuck it, Donna. If you really want to know what it's like to live my shitty life that bad, like
there's this
we'll do it.
great moment of Donna like standing at their table and trying to get Laura to leave with her, and Laura, is resistant and is like, Donna, what are you doing? Get out of it, because she wants to shield Donna from this other part of her life. She doesn't she doesn't want to drag anyone else down with her. And then there's this great moment of, Moira Kelly with her great big eyes and her soft face and her, she grabs a shot glass off of the table, slams it down, and thuds it back on the table. Barely breaks eye contact, and Laura's like, all right, yeah, fuck it, we ball, I guess. Like, and that's when she kind of turns and goes, all right, you want to see what it's like? Fucking here's what it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also really like all the Roadhouse stuff. I like the music here.
The sound design is relentless.
I also love he's textually he is a disgusting pedophile. But I sort of also like Jacques Renault.
I
know. If he wasn't into high school girls, this guy seems like a good hang.
There are other scumbags in Twin Peaks that I like a lot. Jacques Renault, I want to kill him with hammers.
You weren't charmed by this big fat pervert, this disgusting
nasty Canadian child sex trafficker.
Yeah, this big disgusting French Canadians.
there's a point in the scene at the club across the border. Again, like, I love this scene atmospherically, like blaring blues music. All of their dialogue is subtitled because you can't hear just the relentless lighting and like fog in here. It's really like
It's hypnotic.
it's really evocative, and I love it a lot. But there is a scene where Jacques Renault, they're all drinking. They've spiked their drinks a bit. They're on drugs. Jacques Renault gets in between Laura Palmer and another girl, Ronette, who's another sex worker.
Yeah,
And
who we know
Pulaski.
from watching the TV show is a girl who survived the attack that killed Laura Palmer. But yeah.
Yes.
He gets in between them and he talks about, oh, it's my high school sandwich. And I was like,
Yeah. Okay.
I want.
Let me just be clear. That moment specifically is what sours. That moment and some other moments specifically are what sour me on Jacques Renault. But if you remove all of the
If you remove all of the things that he's done,
yes, if you remove the pedophile, sex pervert, rapist element of him,
and the trafficker,
and the trafficking. If he was just a guy who owned a cool bar and that was his whole thing, that is when I would think he is a cool hang.
the drug dealing can stay.
To be very
no,
well, yeah. I mean,
I kind of want to take him.
what am I, fucking Reagan? Like, of course, the drug dealing can stay.
I kind of want to take him into the parking lot and rig him up between two 18-wheelers like in the Hitcher, and just pull him apart and splatter him across the parking lot.
Yeah.
A lot of 18-wheelers parked at the Roadhouse.
He does, by the way, get his absolute shit rocked in this movie, which
Yes.
does rule.
Yeah.
That's very satisfying.
He gets
Yeah.
the fuck beaten out of him.
Yes. By the person who you hate even more than him in this movie, but still.
Yes.
So we go from the Roadhouse to the sex club. Jacques Renault is blank as a fart. I'm blank as a fart. They're doing the drugs, and they
Before this,
Yeah.
there's a really touching scene with Laura walking into the club with Margaret Lanterman, with the log lady.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Who I can't remember what she says because I didn't write down the quote, but it's this really like wrenching like speech to her, like she speaks to Laura like she knows what's going on.
Yeah, and it sounds it sounds like she's sort of trying to like comfort her a little bit, but also give her a warning. Like, but she is speaking to her like a friend, right?
Yeah. Because
and we love the
kind
log
of we love the log lady. I was the log lady for Halloween this year.
I know, the costume was immaculate. It was
Thank you.
So good.
I still have all that firewood in the back of my car because I live in Los Angeles and there's nothing else to do with it.
There's no such thing as a fireplace.
No.
And if you burn shit in your backyard, you'll set the whole county on fire.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So back in the Roadhouse, it's a very long, hypnotic. I mean, like, this is what it feels like to be fucked up at a club. Like, this
Yeah.
is what it looks like.
Yeah, it's a bad trip that's never going to end.
The music here, by the way, is my favorite piece of score in the entire movie.
Yeah,
I
I
love
agree.
this. The house band at the sex club.
Yeah.
They are on fire.
I would go just
Yeah.
for the music. I don't need any drugs.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
need any solicit any sex work. I just want to listen to this band fucking jam.
There's like
Yeah.
there's like cello or like upright bass or something here doing like the main kind of like driving beat of this thing, and it's like this wild like fusion of like jazz, but it's also kind of like doomy in a weird way.
Yeah, like kind of the big loud crashing drums.
Yeah.
This like
Yeah, and then like this cello or bass is just like bump, womp, womp, womp. It's really really good. It fucking rips.
It loops back on itself. And it's
the perfect score to this scene, which like as you were saying, it's like what it feels like being fucked up at a club like way too late.
The climactic moment here is really the guy that Donna's with. You know, Donna's drugged at this point. She's
been roofied.
laying back on a table, and this guy's got her shirt off and he's feeling her up, and Laura looks over and starts screaming.
Yeah, she has like a
snaps
moment
out
of
it.
lucidity. Yeah.
Yeah. And realizes that like she's let Donna into her world too much.
Yes, and that she needs to protect her friend. And there is a moment here earlier in the club where Laura says, in response to I'm blank as a fart," she says, "I'm the muffin," which, if you've seen The Missing Pieces, hits totally fucking different. And I think leads into this moment with Donna, because in The Missing Pieces, there's a cute moment between friends where they're at Donna's house. She offers Laura a muffin, and Laura says, "Donna, you are a muffin." And the way I interpreted it is that is her telling Donna, like, "Oh, you're so sweet and innocent, and like, you could never possibly understand what's going on with me because you're so sweet and innocent, but I love you so much," right? Is sort of the vibe of that. And then at the end of that scene, Donna calls Laura a muffin, right? And she says, "No, you're the muffin." And then she starts walking away, and she says, "Donna, you're right. I'm the muffin."
Yeah, like tearing up.
And I don't know if I'm overthinking this, because that's totally possible with David Lynch movies. But when I watched that scene in The Missing Pieces, I was like, oh, that moment where she says, "No, Donna, you're right, I'm the muffin," is her realizing that she is a teenage girl, and that she should be able to enjoy being a kid still, right? Yeah. And that she's not past the point of redemption, and that there's still something in her that is worth saving, that is the thing that she identifies in Donna, right?
Yes.
And I think that this moment at the Roadhouse, where she is pushing the guy off Donna and telling Donna to get lost, is very much her, because this comes way later, right? And I think by this point, she no longer thinks that she can be saved. And so instead, she's trying to save herself by saving her friend in a way.
Yeah, she's like,
Save someone.
This
is who I am, but this isn't who Donna is.
Right. And she's like, "It's too late for me, but it's not too late for you." Like, yeah. And I love all of the context to this scene that did in The Missing Pieces.
Because I'm not sure if this is really explained in the movie or The Missing Pieces very well, but at some point, Laura realizes that the only way for this to end is for her to die.
Yeah.
And this I know is in The Missing Pieces, which is crucial to understanding what's going on. Is there's an extension of a scene in the Palmer house, which just the phrase "the Palmer house" sets my teeth on edge. Where Bob is talking to her through the ceiling fan. The ceiling fan is a recurring motif throughout the whole thing of, like, that's kind of he talks to her through the ceiling fan because he can kind of travel through electricity, sort of. And also when Laura hears the fan turn on in the hallway, she knows that Bob is coming. So she's in the hallway, in the stairway, like transfixed by the fan, and Bob is telling her that he says, "I want to taste through your mouth," which is the most clear indication of what his ultimate goal is he wants to jump from possessing Leland to possessing Laura. Like, that is his ultimate goal.
And I think Laura even says in the movie, he wants to be me.
Yeah, she's aware of it.
Yeah.
"I want to taste through your mouth" sounds like a Michael Giroux Swans lyric. It sounds like something he would shout over and over in CBGBs with his shirt off
30 times over somebody smacking a bass with like a hammer. And two drum kits going at once.
Yeah.
"I want to taste through your mouth."
But yeah, she realizes that that the only way that this is going to end is for either Bob to possess her or for her to die.
Yeah, and that is it leads so much into how you feel about the end of the movie. That realization where it's like she has accepted her own death.
Yes.
And it's it's heavy shit.
Because Bob can't possess someone unwillingly.
Right.
That's how he came to possess Leland all those years ago when Leland was a child. This is explained in the original run of the show, is that he was like a neighbor at Leland's childhood family, like lake house or something like that, and he remembers him as Robertson, asks him like, can I come in, or like, can you let me in, or something like that, and Leland says yes, and Leland lets him in. He lets this dark spirit in, whether he knows it or not, whether he's fully aware is debatable, but that's a key element, is that Bob can't possess an unwilling host, and so he's trying to break Laura's spirit.
Right. He's trying to essentially torment her so much
into submission
that she will eventually just, in order to make it stop, let it. Yeah. So from there, the next real big thing to talk about, because we talked about the Roadhouse and the sex club, and there is one like brief just plot thing worth mentioning. At the Roadhouse, I think before they go to the sex club, they make an arrangement to go with Jacques Renault to a cabin on a specific night or whatever. But then from there, basically the next big thing is the rape scene. So we don't have to describe it in excruciating detail because it's not fun to talk about.
Essentially what happens is there's a symbol, actually there's a recurring symbol throughout the movie of angels. It's actually mentioned in one of the missing pieces scenes where
psychotic that this was cut.
So I was losing my mind because it does two things. It gives me more Laura and Donna stuff, and it reinforces this motif of the angel symbol, where Donna's father has a message for her about what was it? Let me find it.
It was here. I have it locked and loaded.
Thank you.
It's written. He has it like written on a prescription pad because he's a doctor. It says he tells her, the angels will return, and when you see the one that's meant to help you, you will weep with joy.
And there's a painting in her room where there's these sort of child figures, and one of them is an angel with wings. She looks to it a couple times, and before the rape scene, the angel disappears.
There's also a line in a scene with her and Donna early in the movie where Donna asks Laura, it's implied that they're high on marijuana when they're having this conversation, which is why Donna asks this kind of out there question. But Donna asks her, do you think if you were falling through space, you would slow down or you would go faster and faster? And Laura says faster and faster. Basically you would fall faster and faster until you caught on fire and burned up, and the angels wouldn't help you because they've all gone away. So that's those are kind of all the angel beats.
I was actually incorrect. It disappears before the murder sequence.
Oh, okay.
But a very, very important symbol in the movie. But the rape scene, we don't have to go into super huge detail like you said. Essentially, she's asleep and kind of tossing and turning. Bob crawls in through her window, gets on top of her.
The fan comes on, and that's how she knows that he's coming. He
climbs on top of her, and then Bob turns into her father, or she realizes that
she's screaming, "Who are you?"
while all this is happening, her mother is dreaming about a white horse in the living room.
Yes, which also happens in the series.
Okay.
Sarah Palmer also sees a white horse, I believe, before Maddie gets killed.
Before Maddie Ferguson dies.
Yes, by who is also killed by Leland in the series. Spoilers for
She's
anyone
going
who
back to Missoula, Montana.
It is happening again.
It is happening again.
So she sees the pale horse in the series when he's about to murder somebody else.
Okay.
The pale horse, I think, is an allusion to the pale horse in the Book of Revelation.
Sure.
I beheld a pale horse, and its rider's name was Death, and hell followed after.
Yes, which I think is reinforced by the scene of Major Briggs reading out of Revelation, even though it's not the same passage, which is in the missing pieces. So
He's reading about the Lake of Fire, I think. Is that right?
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and you know, the beast.
Some Revelation
and that
shit.
stuff.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's
so
all that
good.
Revelation shit. It's
Yeah.
all metal as fuck.
I love Revelations.
It is the most heavy metal book of the Bible.
Yeah.
So she sees the pale horse while this is happening.
Drugged by Leland.
Yes. Yeah. And before the rape scene, we do have the scene that we talked about earlier where Leland gives Sarah the milk, which again is just like
It's Bob in control,
and it's
fucking Ray Wise is.
Yeah, but in the non-textual, right, in the thematic reading of that scene, it's just so fucking terrifying to think
awful.
that these are two people where it's like there's an understanding that both of them know what is happening, and just neither of them are talking about it to each other, and she's not admitting it to herself, and he knows that she knows and isn't admitting it to herself, and he just has full control of this house, these two women's lives, this whole situation. It's like such a like stomach churning depiction of domestic abuse. Anyway, so we get the "Who are you?" And it's Dad, and she screams, and it's real upsetting. It's real dark. It's a bad time.
In a movie full of almost nonstop bad times. This is like one of the worst times. Yeah, it's something that I noticed on my second watch that I didn't notice the first time is when it cuts to when Bob/Leland is on top of her. When it cuts back to Leland's face, she's like holding the head in her hands, screaming, "Who are you?" at him. And when it cuts to Leland's face, his face is totally limp.
Yeah.
His face is totally like he's glass-eyed. His like Laura's
he's
hands
like
are like stretching his skin.
Empty shell, yeah.
Yeah, he's just an empty, like he's gone. He's not there. It's, oh my God. I had to pause it and step away for a second. Like it was like noticing that specific detail was, God, it was stomach churning.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, they're having breakfast, I think, and just acting like nothing happened.
Shooting
and
the
Laura
shit.
freaks out and tells him to like stay away from her.
Yeah. I don't remember if it's here or later, but at one point, Laura and Bobby. So Laura is just even more. Her downward spiral is accelerating. Like it's now at Mach 10, right?
Yeah.
She's on a free fall down.
This is when she like basically leaves for the night.
Yeah.
The next night. She leaves for the night. She's going to be murdered tonight.
Right.
The angel fades
and she
away.
knows.
And
there was a scene that was before the rape scene that we didn't mention, but we do want to talk about, which is the drug deal, right?
Yes.
Laura and Bobby go to buy some drugs. Laura is really pushing for this because she's running out and she can't face the world sober, which is understandable. So that her and Bobby like go into the woods to meet this guy who's gonna sell them drugs. And Laura's like really childish and giddy here, and it's almost like she's reverting to like a younger
Yeah.
It's almost like she's trying to, as a defense mechanism, revert to childhood a little bit. And that starts before the guy with the drugs shows up, but it then is escalated by that, because what happens is that the drug deal goes south. The guy who's bringing the drugs pulls out a gun. Bobby also pulls out a gun and shoots the guy and fucking kills him.
The deputy from the prologue, actually.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of the sheriffs from the prologue, I just want to can I read you can I read you the note that I wrote when they came on screen?
Yes.
The note is
while Val's finding this note, I am going to mention a thing that I like about the deputies in the prologue, which is the cut scene where Chris Isaac fist fights one of them.
Yeah.
And they bend a piece of rebar at each other. It fucking rules.
Yeah.
I love how that whole fight was shot. It's so good.
Yeah, it rules. I can see why it's not in the movie, but I adore it. It rips ass.
I'm really glad that I watched it, but I don't think it belongs in the movie. Anyway.
Of course. The note that I wrote about the uncle and nephew sheriff and sheriff's deputy is they're the LMFAO of law enforcement.
I'm really glad we went back to that, because I needed to hear that, especially after that discussion of the heavy shit.
Yeah. So my roommate Charlotte and I have a we have a drinking game for whenever we watch David Lynch material, and one of the things to drink for is, so there's this drill tweet that's like, me seeing two guys in any context, well, if it isn't the Blowjob Brothers. And this is a very long walk to get where I'm going. Something that we noticed is that David Lynch loves wacky duos of guys.
He loves the Blowjob Brothers.
Like Ben and Jerry Horn.
They are definitely the Blowjob Brothers.
Yeah. They are the archetypical Blowjob Brother, and so that's just like our shorthand for like a David Lynch duo of wacky weird guys. Is these are the Blowjob Brothers, and so in my notes I also wrote down well if it isn't the Blowjob uncle and nephew,
aka LMFAO.
Yeah, exactly. Famous, another famous uncle-nephew duo.
Uncle-nephew duo who just make songs about seeing ladies' boobs in the club and shit.
Yeah.
I can't imagine doing that with any of my uncles, but
I can't imagine what those family Thanksgivings are like.
To each their own.
Anyway,
so
cut as much of that as you need to.
Drug deal goes south. The deputy from the other town who's delivering the drugs gets shot. Good gore effect on this guy's shot head. We see some of his brains. That rocks.
He gets the back of his skull blown out.
Yeah.
Bobby Briggs, pretty good shot.
Yeah. And Bobby's kind of freaking out here, as you would, and Laura just kind of keeps, again, she's like reverted to this kind of like
she's
childhood
giggly,
coping mechanism. She's like,
Mike, or Bobby,
yes,
you killed Mike.
Yeah, and I love his reaction, which is he's like, no, I didn't, and then he's like, fuck, is this Mike? Because he's also
strung out,
and also so traumatized, and like his adrenaline is through the roof, right? And so for a second he's like, wait, did I kill Mike? Like it's like it's such a like good depiction of like the kind of like shock following this moment, right?
I am very, very, very bad with faces, and so my first watch I was like, fuck, did he kill Mike?
I was sort of doing that this watch too. I was like, he didn't kill Mike, did he? And then I was like, no, it's not. But so that's the drug deal. And then when jumping back to where we were, Laura, when she's going out, which is right after, as David mentions, the angel disappears from the painting, she goes out and goes to Bobby's. And there is in his basement. We talked about this scene way earlier in the record, where she's getting the coke from him, and he's like, "You don't want me, you just want the blow." He gives it to her anyway because she's Laura Palmer, and you can't help but be head over heels for her, right? So she gets the coke and then goes back home, and then goes out with James. So
sneaks out her window,
seeing both of her boyfriends in one night.
Yeah, she sneaks out with James, and they ride off his motorbike to somewhere in the woods, and have an emotional moment. And Laura kind of just breaks down and says, "There's things that you don't know about me. There's things
Even
that no
Donna
one knows.
doesn't know me."
Donna doesn't know." Yeah. This is a really great line where she says, "Your Laura disappeared."
Yeah. And I think after that she says, "It's just me now."
Yeah.
Which I sort of have a theory that Laura Palmer is the stand-in for the human spirit in Twin Peaks, right? I think there is something definitely intentionally and specifically female about her, but yes. I also do think that there is kind of there's something about her is supposed to represent our collective soul,
yes.
know? And I think the moment your Laura disappeared, it's just me now, is sort of a moment that all of us hit, and it's a thing that I was alluding to earlier, where it's like, I think this movie is so much about, you thought you knew Laura from the show because of other people's impressions of her, but there's a person, there is an individual there who is separate from all of these other people's perception of her, right? There's like a self there, right? And I think that that's sort of what that's getting at, and also something that all of us kind of have to reckon with in our lives, right? Where it's like, there's the person, it's self-actualization, right? It's it's there's the person that everybody thinks you are, and that you want everybody to think you are, and that you move through the world as, right? But then in the quiet moments where you're just by yourself, right? You have to also just be a person.
Yeah.
Right?
You have to contend with yourself.
Right. And I think that this moment was kind of reading that way to me this time, where it's it is sort of David Lynch being that's kind of what we all have to deal with, is that none of us are the person who other people engage with.
Yeah.
Right? There's there's a deeper self, right? That is inherently unknowable, and how that's kind of a terrifying and sad idea.
Yeah.
In a way. Yeah.
Well, and I think James is in love with his own projection of who Laura is.
Yes.
Yes. He is manic pixie dream girl Laura Palmer.
Yeah. And I think that Bobby weirdly hasn't as much, right? And I think she's more her genuine self with him, right?
Yeah.
Because what she tries to be with James is oh, I'm the homecoming queen, right?
Yeah. I'm the all-American girl.
Right. And with Bobby, she's more real. But yeah, I totally agree. I think James is in love with the idea of Laura Palmer.
Yes.
And and this moment is her explicitly saying that person is gone, right? Because I can't keep up those appearances anymore. I can't pretend to be who you want me to be anymore.
Yes.
Which is, it's simultaneously empowering and also very sad.
Yeah. There's a lot going on in just that one line. There's 8 different layers to it.
Yeah.
I think we should jump ahead to the murder.
Yeah, let's jump to the murder.
Well, just real quick, to get to the murder.
Yeah.
They hop back on James's bike.
Yeah.
They come to the corner of Sparkwood and 21. Laura gets off the bike, screams, "I love you, James."
Yes.
Runs off into the woods, and James Hurley fucking lets her go.
Yeah, it's true.
James Hurley just watches her run off into the woods.
Yeah. and then peels out on his motorcycle.
And then fucking peels out on his motorcycle.
Yeah.
And she runs to
the
meet
cabin.
Jacques and Leo and Ronette.
Yeah.
And they go to the cabin.
Yep, and at the cabin, it's Jacques, Leo, Ronette, and Laura. They kind of pair off. They're partying for a little bit. Vibes are fucking absolutely horrendously rancid here. At one point, Jacques does tie up Laura, and it is implied that he rapes her, which is... it's not as explicit as the other time, but it is still gut churning.
I think he's about to, and then
okay.
Is my read on it.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and then Leland/Bob shows up.
Yep, and this is where Jacques gets his absolute shit rocked by Leland Palmer, which Leland Palmer, the villain of the movie.
Yes.
However, seeing this sex trafficking pedo get just an
absolutely domed.
A fucking beatdown from Ray Wise.
The difference between Leland Palmer and Jacques Renault is that Leland Palmer is played by Ray Wise, and I like Ray Wise.
Yeah.
I don't know who the fuck is playing Jacques Renault. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but he's not doing him any favors.
So yeah, he gets obliterated here, which rules.
Yeah.
And Leo Johnson just fucking runs for it. He's basically he sees he opens the door and sees Jacques Renault fucking laid out, and he's like, putting on my boots, peace.
Yep. Fuck this shit, new shoes.
Yeah, and leaves Laura tied up. Even though she's like, will you please? I do sort of like, she is so far gone that she kind of can't even scream or cry anymore. And so when Leo's leaving, she's just kind of like, will you please untie me? She doesn't even sound that distressed. She's kind of says it upset a couple times, but the last time she says it, she's just so resigned. And then Leland comes in, she's still tied up, and he grabs her and Ronette and forced march to the train car, and we got our murder scene.
Yeah. So, and this whole time, fucking Mike, the Black Lodge spirit, in pursuit, there's another scene we didn't talk about that is important to talk about, this with Mike driving a beat to shit motorhome, trying to how do we David Lynch, you motherfucker.
It's like he's trying to warn Laura.
He's trying to warn Laura that Killer Bob is her father,
right,
before she figures it out.
Yeah. And I also sort of think he's trying to break Leland out of he's trying to awaken something in Leland as well, right?
Yes. Because it's Bob behind the wheel, figuratively and literally at this point.
Yeah, and then they basically run off the road. Leland and Laura have this moment being like, that was really fucking weird. That guy in that motorhome just yelled at us. Yeah, and it triggers a flash. Yeah.
Oh, well, he also is yelling. He's screaming at Bob, saying, "You stole the corn. You stole the garmonbozia," which is this conflict between the two of them. Because Bob has been hoarding it, and he also he's trying to show the ring to Laura.
Yeah.
Trying to tell her to take the ring. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, this is all incomprehensible because because Bob/Leland is gunning the engine of his car to try and overheat it because the smell of Killer Bob is scorched engine oil. And so he's trying to mask his own presence there.
Huh.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the engine gunning thing.
Yeah, he's gunning his engine to create the same smell.
All right, David Lynch.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a real motherfucker, isn't he?
Very clever.
There's also a flashback here to Teresa Banks.
Yeah.
Leland Palmer propositions her for sex and then murders her.
Yeah.
That's kind of a big moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so back at the train car, Mike is like running to try and prevent this from happening.
Yes.
And
Useless motherfucker.
yeah, and Leland doesn't use the knife on Ronette, right? He's just like wailing on her with his hands.
Yeah, he just kind of
Yeah, and he's like fully possessed by Bob. Like that textually, like the actual Leland isn't doing any of this. Like it's all Bob. And the way that it's shot, we're seeing like there's flashing kind of strobing lights in this scene, and sometimes
which is emblematic of the presence of the Black Lodge spirits.
Yeah, and sometimes when the light strobes, it'll be Ray Wise, and other times when it strobes, it'll be the actor who plays Bob. So
Frank Silva.
Yes, Frank Silva. So we're getting a visual indicator that like he's like fully acting under the influence of the spirit now.
Yes.
And so he basically beats Ronette to shit. I think he maybe chokes her. I don't remember.
Causes severe brain damage.
Yeah. And so she is kind of slumped, and there is a moment here where an angel appears in the train car.
Because Ronette has been praying.
Yes. And Ronette sees the angel. Does Laura see the angel too, or does only Ronette see this one?
No, this is Ronette's angel.
It's Ronette's angel. Okay, yeah. So she sees the angel, and then around here, Mike manages to get the door of the train car open and pull Ronette out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Ronette's bonds just come untied.
Right. Yeah.
Because of the angel.
Divine intervention. Yeah.
Yes. Literally just divine intervention.
Yeah, and the green ring drops onto the floor of the train car. And Laura picks it up and puts it on.
Yes.
And gets murdered.
Yes.
Yep. She gets stabbed a bunch of times. And the way it's shot is very effective. The music here is very dramatic. It's a very effective murder scene. And you've gotten to know and love Laura Palmer so much by this point that it's tremendously affecting. It's really sad. It's really horrifying.
It has maybe the most devastating single line in maybe anything I've ever seen, which is it's going back and forth between Bob like screaming at her and Leland talking to her, and he says the worst thing I've ever heard anyone say, which is he says, "I thought you always knew it was me."
Yeah.
And I just, oh my God. Yeah.
And this scene is like very effectively disturbing and harrowing without being exceedingly violent.
No, yeah.
Or
It's
explicit or
handled
gratuitous.
Really well, I think.
Yeah.
There's some blood, but we never really we don't really see like graphic like gore here. But you still get a sense of the brutality of it in a really big way, even with him not showing you that much.
Yeah. And there's a missing pieces scene that I wish was in this cut of the log ladies just holding her log somewhere off in the woods. Yeah. And she hears Laura scream and starts crying.
Yeah.
Because she knows.
Yep.
She knows that she's kind of in tune with sort of the Black Lodge spirits more generally.
Yes. The log has something to tell you.
My log, someday my log will have something to say about this. And that's mentioned in the show in the original run. She says my log heard something that night.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really I wish that was in the theatrical cut.
Yeah, I also really love at the end of the murder, he goes to wrap her in plastic. She's dead, wrapped in plastic.
She's dead, wrapped in plastic.
And he unfurls the big plastic sheet, and the light's still strobing, and through the plastic sheet, you're still seeing it go from Ray Wise to Frank Silva.
Yeah.
And I just think so many of those like little camera things and lighting things are just so clever and so good. Good job directing this movie,
job, David Lynch.
Then it's basically the opening of Twin Peaks. She's floating in the water, wrapped in plastic, and the end of this movie is Laura in the Black Lodge with Dale.
And and this takes place at the end of the show. or
Yes, I think that the implication here, yes, is that this is. I don't remember if this scene exactly happens with the angel and everything in the show, but
I don't think so.
But I think that this is supposed to be happening at the end of the show when they meet in the Black Lodge at the end of season 2.
And an angel appears above Dale and Laura, and Laura looks at it and starts smiling and crying to herself.
She does weep with joy.
And that's where the movie ends.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else we want to talk about before we get to our verdicts?
What? Yes. I have another 4 hours. No, I wanna get your guys' take on what happens in the train car with the ring.
So I have a thought about this, which is it's not super like very well developed, but that's fine because nobody needs to hear me talk about this for 30 minutes. But basically, I think that the ring, that her choosing to put on the ring, I think the ring connects you to the world of the spirits of the Black Lodge in some way. So I think that when Annie in the hospital delivers her message to Laura, and this is obviously, like we said, months after Laura has been murdered. I think she's wearing the ring when she does that. I think the thing that allows her to send a message to Laura through time is the fact that she's wearing the ring, which connects her to this supernatural force, right? That was my reading of it. This is my interpretation. So I think her putting on the ring and being killed with it on is what sends her to the Black Lodge when she dies. Instead of going wherever else or nowhere or whatever, right? I think she ends up in the Black Lodge after she's murdered because she's wearing the ring when she was murdered, which I don't know what reason Mike has to want that. That's not super clear to me, but I think that explains why Dale tells her in the dream not to put it on, right? He says, don't take the ring, Laura, because I think he's trying to save her, right? And in a way, like, save her from being murdered. But if he can't save her from being murdered, at least save her from ending up in the Black Lodge, right? And it doesn't work, and they meet there. So that was my reading on it. But I don't know what y'all think.
Don't fucking ask me.
Yeah. What do you think, Val?
So here's what I think is
David
going
has
on
truly
here.
been like, let's take. You can take your fan theories and you can shove them up your ass.
Yeah,
You fucking nerds.
which is correct.
Yes. I also think that's a totally valid and maybe even the correct way to watch David Lynch and engage with his stuff.
Oh, 100%.
Like, shove your fan theories up your ass, because I ultimately think that part of the beauty of his stuff is that it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I watched the show 3 or 4 years ago, kind of in chunks, and I had meant to rewatch parts of it before this recording. I didn't. I just watched the movie twice in the missing pieces. So there's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of it I don't remember. A lot of it I'm not sure what it means. There's plenty of stuff to interpret, but I also don't know that I have a ton to say about every little detail in this movie.
That being said, Val, I know you do.
So,
but I will say that I do like the ending. I like the stuff with the green ring. I love the angel at the end.
yes,
And she's crying and the music swells. It's pretty beautiful stuff.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. So what I think is happening is the ring can bind the wearer to the arm or to Mike, one or the other, because they're maybe both, because they're connected. But there's a scene that this has been the refrain of this episode of the podcast. There's a scene that we haven't talked about where with the arm and Cooper in the red room standing next to a green Formica table. And he and the arm is explaining about the ring. He holds it up and he says, "With this ring, I thee wed."
Yeah.
And that he is like delivering it to camera in a dream that Laura is having.
Right.
So he's telling Laura, this ring will wed you to me. And I think why Mike is trying to get Laura to put the ring on is because if she accepts the ring, she and her spirit become bound to the arm / Mike, and therefore cannot be possessed by Bob. So the arm isn't necessarily trying to save Laura necessarily. Mm-hmm. He's trying to thwart Bob, and it just happens to be that this is the way that that he can do that.
And there is a moment here at the end where Bob and Leland kind of separate in the lodge in front of the man from another place and Mike, the one-armed man.
We do need to talk about that.
And I wasn't sure about that, other than like there is some sort of soul separation. That Bob and Leland are now two distinct entities.
Yeah.
Well, this is after the rape scene, I think, right?
It's this is after the murder. It's after the murder when
yes. You're right.
This is between the murder and the very end, which is Coop and Laura in the lodge. But Bob and Leland have separated, and Leland's like floating. He's like a floating husk, like he's not not present.
Yeah, he's like in stasis.
Yeah, and this is where the man from another place is touching Mike, right? Mm-hmm. And they say in unison, "Bob, I want all my garmonbozia." And he takes the blood off of Leland's shirt and chucks it on the floor, right? And there's like a blood splatter on the floor, and it basically is transmuted into creamed corn that then the man from another place is eating.
Yes.
And with what you were just saying, Val, I wonder if like the ring thing is partially to claim Laura's pain and sorrow as theirs, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why Mike and the man from another place, it's their garmonbozia, because the ring was like putting a little stamp on it and being like, this is mine, right? Mm-hmm. You can't possess her, but you can kill her. But when you kill her, the pain and sorrow belongs to me because she was wearing my ring or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. And because there's a moment when Laura puts the ring on, Bob reacts with fury, because that's the point at which he knows that Laura is now beyond his reach, that he can't possess her anymore. So basically, that's what's happening with the ring, and that's the climax of the whole Laura Palmer story. Is she puts the ring on, she accepts being bound to the Black Lodge instead of being possessed by Bob, mm-hmm. and then is yanked into, and then has the epilogue with Coop and with the angel.
Yeah,
and that's Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah,
Val, I will turn it over to you as our esteemed guest.
Thank you.
Is Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, directed by David Lynch, the greatest movie ever made?
Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me is it's a flawed masterpiece. It is baffling to the untrained eye. It requires watching like 20-ish hours of television before you can understand it, or to like 15-ish if you skip the shitty parts, which I love. I love the shitty parts, but let's be real with ourselves. It's not accessible in a vacuum. It requires some context there are important elements in it that are only paid off 25 years later in a Showtime limited series. It's not a perfect movie. But a flawed masterpiece is still a masterpiece. I love this movie so goddamn much. I love Laura Palmer so much, and you can tell that like this whole thing is just shot through with David Lynch and his love for Laura Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the most affecting pieces of art I've ever consumed in my life. It's such a bracing and ruinously effective examination of, you know, the cycle of abuse and family dynamics and also supernatural horrors and the ultimate horror of being a teenage girl in a small town. It is... So the greatest movie ever made is a movie that is so thoroughly entertaining and compelling that while you're watching it, it's the only thing that matters in the world. Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me is the greatest movie ever made. When I watch Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, there is nothing else going on in the world. It's an evil, horrible, wrenching thing to watch. It is at many points hostile to the audience. It's such a bad time for so long, and it's the greatest movie ever made.
Hell yeah. Wow, I don't think I'm going to have anything to add in my final thoughts, Val.
Put that on the DVD box.
Yeah, there's like 18 pull quotes in there.
Yeah.
for a 4K re-release.
I mostly speak in pull quotes.
Also, David nodded very impressed when you verbatim said the intro bit to the podcast.
I wrote it out before the record.
Oh, okay.
I write it out before the record, and I still have trouble saying it. So
he was like, "Oh, damn, good job."
that's the show.
What can I say? I'm a devoted TGMEM
That's
listener.
Right. TGMEM. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being a fan of the show, Val. We appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
And thank you for your final thoughts on Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. I'm looking at David, and this is the man we need to hear from.
Yeah.
Because Val and I both were way more up in David Lynch's guts on this thing. We were crawling around in there being like, "Oh, hey, I love this place." You I think had a slightly more
sane
sane.
So Justus, am I taking that your final verdict is just echoing everything that Val says?
Well, I mean, do you want me to go before you, or do you want to go next?
Okay, I can go now if you want.
David, is Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, directed by David Lynch, the greatest movie ever made?
I think there's one thing that we can agree on. This movie is not going to change your opinion on Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
No.
At least not by much. If you don't like Twin Peaks, you won't like this movie. If you do like Twin Peaks, you will like this movie.
And you were medium on Twin Peaks.
I was medium on Twin Peaks. So, no. I don't think this is the greatest movie ever made. I like this more than my memory of Twin Peaks. I think tonally this is a lot more consistent. The stuff that works here that comes over from Twin Peaks really works well. It's also kind of like Val said, it's flawed. It's big and unwieldy, and it feels incomplete while also being too long in some areas. But there's a lot that I love here. There's a lot that I love in terms of performances, in terms of music and atmosphere and visual creativity. I love all of the surreal stuff. It's missing some humanity for me. It's missing some grounding character moments. And as someone who hasn't seen the original show in a while, who hasn't watched The Return, I feel like I'm not quite in the club yet.
Yeah.
I haven't been taken over the border to the sex club with the blues band yet. So no, I do not think Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me is the greatest movie ever made, though I am very glad that I watched it. Part of the reason why I didn't watch it, I haven't watched it yet, is after watching Twin Peaks, I was kind of bummed and let down that so many of the great surrealist elements of that show were saved until the very end. And the rest of the show didn't have a lot of stuff to latch onto here. I think there's a lot more that I personally latched onto with this film, and watching the missing pieces as well. But I also think there's stuff from the missing pieces that should be in here.
Yeah.
There's stuff that's in this movie that should be taken out. I kind of want the Chet Desmond movie.
Yeah.
Play around with that a little bit more. I guess he had originally planned to do a film trilogy, and then this didn't do well, so he scrapped that. I'm sure plenty of the stuff he put into the return. So
Yeah.
But to make a long story short, nope, ain't the greatest movie ever made. If Major Briggs was in it,
Yeah.
I could be swayed.
If they had just put that one scene from the missing pieces in.
Yeah.
Is anybody gonna ask me what I think? I, a white man, need my opinion heard.
Justus.
Someone please ask me.
Justus Marie Christina Burkett Jr. Is Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me the greatest movie ever made?
Okay, so I want to say, Val, I agreed with every word that you said in your final thoughts. David, I agreed with every word you said in your final thoughts.
Yeah.
And where does that leave me, right? This is the piece of Twin Peaks and sort of the piece of David Lynch's entire creative career that I've consumed that I feel like I have the most, like, mixed feelings is maybe the wrong word, but maybe the most complex feelings about, right? Something like Mulholland Drive. If we had just done a Mulholland Drive episode, and this was the part of the podcast where I said whether Mulholland Drive was the greatest movie ever made or not, that would be a knee-jerk yes, right? I'd be like, yes, absolutely. Eraserhead, same deal, right? The show has always been, I've very much always been a person who's like, season 1 is immaculate, season 2 has its ups and downs, and is kind of mostly shitty, and then there's some really good stuff in there, right? And then, like, The Return, I'm, like, really solidly positive on. I'm like, The Return is kind of, to me, the masterpiece of the Twin Peaks series, right? This is complicated. I love so much of this, and I think it is executed so well, and I think Lynch's creative vision is so clear, and I think the stuff that we were talking about where Lynch likes to give you 12 ideas about something, or 12 interpretations of an idea, and also just let you think that it can also be nonsense, and he kind of lets you weigh those all equally and mold them around and toss them around in your head, and I fucking love that. I think it's done a little better in some of his other works, because there are things that do sometimes frustrate me about this movie, like the stuff that David mentioned, right? And I do sort of think that a lot of the issues, both with the show and with this, come down to interference by the business side of
Robert Iger.
right, and so it's like I don't want to fault him for that, but at the same time, like, this is the movie we got, right?
You have to judge it on the merits of what it is.
Yeah, and I think on the merits of what it is, Val, are our third guest. Both of our other guests I have sided with. I knew I was going to have to go against the guest at some point, and I'm so sorry that it's on your episode. But Val, I don't quite think Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me is the greatest movie ever made, and in a weird way, I almost think Twin Peaks: The Return is the greatest movie ever made.
It kind of is,
and it's a 10-hour long movie that aired on Showtime as a TV show.
18-hour long.
18-hour long. God. It's been a really long time since I watched it, but like it left.
No, I was just being a shit.
No, yeah, you're totally fine. It left a bigger impression both thematically and artistically than this did.
Yeah.
Even as much as I love this, and as much as I think Sheryl Lee in this gives one of the greatest performances in any Lynch movie I've ever seen, and there's a ton of other ones that we've already talked about as well that are fantastic. There's so much to love here. There's also so much to kind of wrestle with and stumble over, and for that reason, I agree with you, it's a flawed masterpiece, but the flaws for me are enough that I'm going to say that this is not quite the greatest movie ever made. Sorry, we're 2 against 1. This
that's
feels misogynistic.
I get it. You hate women, whatever. It's fine. You know who doesn't hate women is David Keith Lynch.
Yes.
Thank you.
He loves women so much that he's been married to 4 of them, and who knows? Who knows how many more there will be?
This morning, Isabella Rossellini's phone rang.
I had the Monica Bellucci dream.
I had another Monica Bellucci dream again.
Anyway,
that's the heartbreaking thing about this movie is that I agree with both of you. Is that like you're both totally right. Is that like it's shot through with warts, and you know it's not, you know, it is a deeply flawed piece of art, and that, like, you know, it just the reason why for me it's the greatest movie ever made is just because the heart and soul of it, I guess, just punches through all of that in a way that it hasn't for really any other flawed good thing that I've consumed before.
I mean, if anyone understands what you're talking about, Val, it's the 2 of us, because we both started this show by saying that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 was the greatest movie ever made. So I can definitely get defending, like, it's like,
and you made a good case for it.
Yeah,
and I could definitively say the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is a worse movie than Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me.
It's not as well made.
Yeah. But
So yeah, that's it. We did it.
Yeah, fucking finally. Oh my god. Val, thank you so much for bringing us this Gordian knot of a movie to uncover over the course of this episode. I would love to just give you the platform right now and plug anything you would like to let the people out there in the world know what you have going on.
Oh, beautiful. So you can find the podcast network that I work on at MaximumFun.org. I edit a show called Query with Cameron Esposito. That is conversations with members of the queer community about, you know, the queer experience. I every Friday I post a picture of Garfield on Twitter.com. That's the same picture every time, and I have for 2.5 years, I think, since the beginning of the pandemic, since the beginning of lockdown. I've tweeted the same picture of John Arbuckle screaming "Friday again, Garfy baby." You can find that Friday mornings at twitter.com/valposting.
It's one of my favorite running Twitter bits. And I also love that, speaking of David Lynch, he also has a running Friday bit. Or I guess it's not a Friday bit. Had, yeah. Because it was daily, but just one account was posting the Friday ones. Where, if you
It is once again a Friday.
If you can believe it. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted your plugs to talk about Lynch's weather forecasts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's more or less, we're talking about the same level of importance here. There's another element to that bit, which is that it's the same. So I don't have the one JPEG on my phone. It's every time I've ever done it, I've gone back and saved the previous one from Twitter to my phone and then reposted it. So it's a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, etc., going back 150 weeks or whatever it is.
I was wondering if it was scheduled or just every Friday you woke up and it's time.
No, I have it. I deliberately I don't schedule them. I have a calendar, just a recurring calendar alert in my phone, and I don't schedule them because I have to go and save the copy of the copy of the copy of the copy. And you can see if you scroll back far enough, the JPEG is degrading.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get it to the point where it's like beyond recognition.
I didn't notice this because I only see it
prestige!
one. Yeah, I didn't notice this because I only see it 1 week at a time, and that is fucking genius.
This is more than I've ever committed to anything in my life.
It's such a good bit that you're like slowly degrading the image quality intentionally.
Yeah. It's become a commentary on like the impermanence of digital storage.
This
Because it's a boil the frog slowly. It's a boil the Garfield slowly.
This was already my favorite Twitter bit, and now like it's even better for me now that I have more context about just a peek behind the curtain, huh? Wow.
Anyway,
rad.
that's the main thing that I want to plug.
and did you already say your Twitter handle?
Oh yeah, at Valposting, VALPOSTING.
Wow.
That does it.
That's it.
Does it for the
I think we're probably over 3
least
hours
accessible episode of the greatest movie ever made to date. Justus, next week
we will be talking about Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me again. We're going to do another 3 hours. No, that's not what we're doing.
No, but we are talking about another surreal psychological thriller, and that is The Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yes. Yeah. With Michael Caine.
A childhood favorite of both of ours.
Yes, we're both big Muppet Christmas Carol fans.
Yeah. So be sure to tune in for that. In the meantime, please follow Val and support her and her great work to bring the joy of Garfield to the world. Support us. Leave us a tweet, a review, tell a friend about the show. And as always, we will leave you with our send-off. And Val, you are welcome to jump in and join us on this.
I certainly will.
Later, dipshits. We hope you enjoyed this episode of The Greatest Movie Ever Made. Please remember to leave us a rating and a review, and to subscribe to the show wherever you listen. We appreciate you supporting the show and spreading the word. Tell your friends to listen, tell your enemies to listen, tell your mom to listen. If your neighbor has an unsecured Bluetooth speaker, connect to it and play an episode. You can follow us on social media at TGMEM_podcast, and if you've got a movie that you want us to talk about, send us an email at thegreatestmoviepodcast@gmail.com. Okay, that's all for now. We hope you beautiful people all come back next week for another episode.